I wish all the departments did this. And I'm gonna ask all departments to provide it, even though there's detail in the books. I think the summary that you provided is outstanding, and I really like it, and it's allowed me to review it and go back in and take a look. The only suggestion I would make to any of the other department heads is we're just putting a column where you were last year. Like this is what I budgeted last year, this is what I budgeted this year. So, but I think it's outstanding. I really want to thank you. And I don't know if anybody else on the board wants to say anything to Chief Jennifer, but huge thanks and appreciation from the town.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. All right. I'll let you get started.
So basically, with the new contract hitting in July, as you know, I won't be here.
Pause. I have to pause. We need to ratify Jesse first.
Okay, so yeah, it
Dennis.
would have been fine.
I just realized that we need to do that.
Nice to have it on.
Dennis, I'm really sorry. Jesse, I apologize.
I figured you were waiting for his budget to come up, but I have.
No, I did.
I
It's
have,
on here.
yeah, so I have
This one here, there.
back to back. DPW director, as we discussed previously, and he's looking forward to stepping into that role effective in 2 minutes, hopefully. We got a big storm on Tuesday.
It sure made me proud. I have to travel.
Require ratification by the board.
And we'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion to ratify the appointment of Jesse Rydell.
Yep.
Right. To our DPW director position, effective right now.
All right, we have a first, we have a second. We have a second by Mrs. McNulty. Any questions? Any questions from the audience? No, any comments? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. And, I actually, it was really funny yesterday, I had this nice thing for Dawn, and Jesse shows up and he's got these big clown shoes on. I think to kind of indicate, hey, I've got big shoes to follow, so I thought it was really, that was pretty funny. And I keep that sense of humor, man, that's really good, especially in the workplace.
You're gonna need it Tuesday morning.
So Chief, back to you.
So the second year of the contract's kicking in, so that's gonna, these salaries indicate, a 2% raise in, from July to January, and then the 1% raise from January to June. Also, two things are being rolled into their annual salary, their holiday pay and their floating on. So these salaries all indicate that. Basically, other than that, it's all contractual numbers. The expense portion of the budget was there's some added expenditures, especially you know, they put the Curtis apartments in, so Barrett's trucking is gone, and he did a lot of our work, so for not dealer cost. So since he's been gone, the motor vehicle equipment maintenance account has to go up because now I have to pay dealer price. So, I suggest, the deputy and I were talking, maybe he works for Matty Clark now up on Williams Way and out of a bay there, and maybe we can talk to Matty and see if Barrett can work on our vehicles, you know, while he's up there, and see if we can work something out that way, because it's a lot cheaper when he does it and gets our equipment back to us immediately. So we're gonna try to talk to Matty Clark about that and see how we do it.
And when you planning on meeting with Matt? Is that, you have a
We can probably,
He gets back from vacation.
yeah, he's in
You always on vacation?
Coy Coast or wherever he is. He's roaming around somewhere. So we'll get a hold of him when he gets back and see if that's something we can do. Other than that,
One of the things that the chief didn't touch on in salaries is this increase, the bulk of, well, not the bulk of it, but a big percentage of that increase has to do with 2 additional firefighters that were board voted to fund in November of last year. So that would basically reflect the bulk of that, or at least a percentage of that increase. So it looks like a 6.5% increase in salaries. It is, but it does include those two new firefighter positions, which unfortunately haven't been filled yet. It's just a difficult time for all towns, including public safety personnel, but I know you're actively working on that. I know Chief's been looking to increase the numbers for some time now, so we finally got it done on his way out the door. So,
Well, you know, just to summarize that, as I'm walking out the door, so to speak, if the town's gonna keep building this infrastructure, they have to keep up with the people that have to protect it. So, right now, we're still understaffed. We have 6 on a shift, and we run an ambulance service. So that takes 4 people out of the mix right away. Running both those ambulances, which are constantly on the move. So that only leaves 2 firefighters to handle any other emergency in the town. The size of this town and the way, and the infrastructure that's being built and the infrastructure that's being proposed to be built isn't gonna sustain 2 firefighters being available for anything. So, just a thought. I appreciated the 2 men, extra men. Once they're hired, they'll go down south. So there'll be 2 shifts that will have three people down south. So that the engine at headquarters can stop running down there. The lieutenant can run out of a pickup truck down there and back up the ambulance. But if this town's gonna keep accepting and building and upgrading their infrastructure, we gotta keep up with the fire department. You know what I mean? At the last chief's meeting I was at, you know, we kind of thought because of the SAFER grant and, you know, Ed Kelly, he's a Boston firefighter. He's now the general president of the IFF in Washington. So who do you think's getting the brunt of all the SAFER money? It's Boston. So all the small towns are now suffering. But the way you think about it, if the police don't have to go for these SAFER grants to keep up their manpower, why does the fire department have? We're held to the same standards they are. You know, they're two men per 1,000, same as the fire department. So if Jerry Dale has 36 men, I should have 36 men. I mean, it's just common sense. And my job is more manpower intensive. So I'm just saying, it just needs to be looked into. You guys just need to be cognizant of that stuff in the future. And I'm sure my predecessor will kind of bring that to your attention. I'm hoping you will.
I appreciate the commentary. I think we're all very aware of trying to find the funding to bring you those additional books. I mean, police have been understaffed for years too, and having the same difficulties. I don't want to compare three personalities into it, Jerry's name or whatever. I think in general, we do realize, and it's important to all of us here on the board, that we have safety. I mean, I also, you know, this hypothetically down the road, we'll need another larger station house somewhere down south. I mean, that one down below with the growth. And if you look at and I looked at the numbers over the next 5 years as far as families moving into town with proposed buildings, all the different the Curtis apartments, and then you look at the Locuster projects, you look at the other projects, there's going to, in excess of 650 families will be moving into this town. Now, I'm not talking schools, I'm just talking public safety. And we don't have 650 families moving out of Bellingham on an annual basis. We have a town, because of the infrastructure, lower taxes, that our senior citizens, it's affordable for them to live here. They're not leaving Bellingham and going somewhere else. They're not going, it's too expensive to move to Medway or Millis or Milford. It's just, we offer a lot more. So we're not cycling 650 out and 650 in every year. Probably.
No, it's just a bad.
So I get it. It's something that the board in the future is gonna have to.
A lot of families move here because of the tax rate.
Yeah.
But there's a double-edged sword to that. Because of the tax rate, you can't hire public safety to take care of all the families that move here because of the lower tax.
It's,
So I mean, I do understand that. I do understand the financial difficulties with that.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't help the men on the street.
no, it doesn't. So, okay.
So like I said, and with the ambulance receipts, with the ambulance, equipment, they went up to 92,000. That's going to be because of just the run volume that we're at now, and I can see my projected spending throughout the end of this, the FY 23 budget, where we're gonna be short. So, and now Milford Hospital doesn't wanna pay for anything. So if we give a person drugs, I gotta replace them at the town's dying. So it's just, the hospitals are just getting to be, very, like a better word, yeah, they're not very cooperative. You know, they'll charge that patient for that drug, but they won't give it back to us. So that's just the way they are, and so other than that, the rest of it is basically just level funded, and a lot of since I'm leaving, on the line item for dues and memberships, I have eliminated a few of those that I was a part of, and I only put the ones in there that that the new chief's going to need. He's going to have to be a part of those, and if he chooses to be a part of, you know, the things that I was a part of, then he's gonna have to budget that, you know, at his leisure. But I didn't project that he wanted to be a part of those, and just because I was, so I did that, and that's why that line item should be less than that. If you guys have any questions. Any questions? Any questions from the board?
The only observation is we posted the new chief's salary of between 150 and 160, so the number that's in there is rather arbitrary. Top line item.
Yeah, I had talked to Mary about that number, and we just basically just put what I'm making now, and we just, you know, go from there. So that number is not.
It's good, yeah, we anticipate that there will be a modification to that as we go through the process.
Anything else? Oh, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it. Well done. Thank you. How you go to birthday party? You going too?
You gonna jump into the ball
You gonna
pit?
jump in the ball pit?
No. I'm gonna jump in, they say you can't, but I.
Do not get hurt.
And then have Chris stand by.
Oh, well, he's in the ball pit playing.
Bye.
Council on Aging.
Josie is on Zoom.
Morning. Good morning. So I would say the increase in our and Dennis mentioned it with the fire department, it's mostly related to salaries. The assistant director, the full-time clerk, and myself getting the increases recently. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much level funded. I think we only went up in postage because we were told postage was going up. We're fortunate because the state funding we get, they finally recognized current numbers of seniors as opposed to basing it on the 2010 census. So we had a big jump this year. We were getting 34,000 a year, you know, the past few years, and it went up to 51,000 at $12 per senior. And I know that Massachusetts Council on Aging is requesting from EOEA that we get $14 a senior next year. So hopefully we continue to have these supplemental funds that help support the work that we're doing. What, you know, the request that we had last year, we never filled the position of a part-time social worker. So we've decreased the number of hours and increased the rate. It's pretty much the same overall salary, in hopes that we can get somebody that is drawn to that position. But I don't know, are there any questions on the budget numbers for me?
Joe, the only question I have, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not questioning. Yeah, I am. the number. I mean, what? That's a big postage number. To me, I'm just it's just.
Yeah.
number
we-
here? What do you send, what are you mailing out? Why is the cost so high for postage? The
We mail
department?
out close to 3,000 newsletters monthly.
Okay,
There's your postage.
Yeah.
And I'm, 5-6 cards a day, but
oh, yeah, I know, I understand, I was just trying to.
Yeah,
understand
no, it's the newsletters is the bulk of the
Newsletter.
postage costs.
Yeah,
And that's our biggest form of
It's-
outreach.
Don't go on.
That's the biggest form of outreach that we have in the community. And the seniors, they read the details of the newsletter. And I gotta say, with Dave Dunbar, who's like the editor of the newsletter, it's a real quality piece if you compare it to newsletters and other.
No,
I mean, if you look 10 years from now, when people are more comfortable with online services. You can.
Yeah, yep.
If you're 80 and 90, I guess you want to read it, but no one reads the Globe.
We've got people that pull out the, we call it the centerfold. It's the calendar in the middle. And they post it on their refrigerator. Yeah. So, and this is not, these are people that are email savvy and they like the print copy. They
I get it, that's why I just was trying to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, budget's not online too.
Yeah.
Couple of things that have been going
Yeah.
very strongly, Josie has mentioned, is the social daycare has really gotten extremely popular to the point where we're pretty much maxed out as far as clients go.
We are. We've got a wait list of 1 right now, but it is pretty much maxed out. We do have a 103-year-old in the program. You just never know when you're going to lose people. We've been fortunate since we reopened after COVID that we haven't lost any. But that typically is the door that happens in that supportive day program, but going well right now. So. And we're at a point, we're
Going
starting to
well.
plan some trips for them, like they're gonna go out for lunch. We're working with a local restaurant and who's putting together a menu for them. We're gonna take them for lunch. Which is difficult because we have to have all the staff there and a few tax work off people. Many of them need one-on-one assistance. And so it's certainly much safer to keep them in the building. But we have the funds to be able to bring them out based on that budget right now.
Would you, just for my own edification, could you update us on the kitchen and what's happening there? Anything going on?
Yeah, I spoke
What's
with,
the latest thing to talk about it?
yeah, I spoke with Tim this week. The plan is that he's going to work with the DPW to start the dig portion of the kitchen at the outdoor, set the foundation. He's getting bids out for plumbing and electrical engineering. And then most of the build out is going to be done in-house. Contract.
The design is in, that's what
Right.
we're waiting on,
Remember
the
that.
specifications. I know Tim's been working hard on that, and working with you, seniors are excited about it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
money's in place and
Yeah.
hope to be
And-
moving forward on that soon.
And we've got some replacement Pell windows. We have a few Pell windows that were malfunctioning. So Tim's helped me get some of those. So those will be replaced by the end of in the next few months. And the AC units in the back of the building are also good.
It's all in. Excellent. Oh, great. Do you have an anticipation when you'll break ground and when it will be complete? Is it a 6 or 9 month project? Is it by next fall maybe that you'd have?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Okay.
So we don't have a schedule as far as,
Project plan.
right, we don't have a schedule yet, but that's what we're working on now.
I'd like to do something exciting. The other question is, maybe will you have a chef there? Will you have someone that will cook? Is that part of your budget?
That will be part. That will
Of
be
next
part
year's
of
budget?
maybe next year's budget. We're gonna start it off with the state formula grant. We'll fund it through that.
Okay.
Because that's a very healthy budget right now as well. We haven't had any need to expend too much in that. We were it used to be that you had to expend it by June 30th, and during COVID they took away that rule. So now we can accumulate, and our goal was to see what we needed to. Once we had the ARPA funding for the kitchen, if there were additional funds needed, we would have a bit of money available for that. So we've got a healthy budget going on with the formula grant, and that'll be for the initial years. We will fund.
Thank you. Are there any- Any, no, thoughts, no, great, thank you very much. Well done. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
Oh,
you.
see you there, yeah,
Thank you.
you're good, thank you.
I was frozen, or you were frozen, but okay,
Oh,
thank you.
No, it's pretty warm in here. Thank you very much.
I'll talk to the IT person.
Yeah. Come on, you know, get rid of the gerbil on the wheel for your internet at your house. Come on, come on.
Thank you,
Bye.
Josie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next library. Bernadette.
Good morning.
Morning.
So our overall budget increase is 4%. The salaries are between 2% and 4% for most of the line items. We did hire a new youth services librarian for $7,000 less than we were paying Steve. She was a children's librarian in Plainville for 6 years. She does not have a master's, but she has the experience, so we were able to bring her in at that lower end of the salary scale. She's doing great. We're really happy with her performance so far. Everything's going really well. The other salary items are contracts for the union staff. And then our part-time staff, which traditionally the town funds a portion of, and we pay the rest with our state aid. We're requesting a $12,000 increase to the town from 32,000 to 44,000 of our state aid. That will pay 70 of our part-time salaries. That will pay 70% of the part-time salaries. So we'll still be paying 30% of our part-time salaries out of our state aid. And that's kind of the salaries. The operating budget, the state requires that we spend 15% of our full budget on books and periodicals or materials that people can check out. So that line was up $4,500 to make that 15% requirement. And the only other thing that's up there is office supplies, just because things are costing a little more. Now, actually, there's another 1,000 in there too for technical maintenance. We're getting our wireless router replaced by the network, and that's $1,000. They know that's a one-time thing, so that might adjust next year. And that's kind of a short summary.
Any questions from the board?
From curiosity, on the spending, how's that break down between hard copies and?
Well, so the materials budget, we have books, we have DVDs, we have audiobooks, we have electronic resources. Now, right now, I think we're spending about 20 to 30% of the money on electronic things, between their electronic books or audiobooks. And then we also have access to like language learning software and job helping me do my resume. So there's a lot of electronic things that are counted in that budget also.
Much of the stuff that's for children, other than preschool, electronic, the students that are coming in after
So
school.
just yesterday, actually, our new children's librarian brought in a resource she had in Plainville that we didn't have, that we're signing on to for electronic stuff. It's actually like educational supplement things. So if your kid's having trouble in math, it's worksheets you can download that you can actually do other things with. So we're definitely moving more into electronic. But yeah, they still circulate way more books than we do anything else. People are still checking out physical items.
Interesting, the school budget proposes to cut the middle school and high school librarians because no one's checking out books anymore.
The school,
Different.
it's different. It's a
I'm not
different.
comparing apples to apples.
Yeah,
It's
it is
different.
customers.
It's different, it is different. And I think the schools they can access the electronic books that they need for a whole classroom.
Yeah.
We have and the electronic books are a whole different thing. Like we buy an electronic book, different publishers put different rules on them. So if you go buy a James Patterson ebook, it will cost you $15 or $20. They charge us $74.
Yeah.
And every 26 people that check it out, we have to buy a new one. So, yes, yeah, yeah.
I know.
There's
The
a,
school department has the one-to-one initiative, so all of the kids have an electronic device.
right, yeah, so the publishers are, and actually, I think this Massachusetts state, there's something in the state they're trying to put some limits on what the publishers can do in Massachusetts, because it is kind of crazy that we have to, like the Prince book, the Spare, the Prince Harry book, I mean, we're buying electronic copies of that because the demand is so high. And then every 26 copies, we have to buy a new one. And so we can have 5 electronic copies, but only one person can have those 5 copies at a time. So it's kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
I know, because I tried to download books that I'm a series on, and I can never get them.
You're on a wait list.
Yeah, I can never get them. So
Just like a physical book.
I buy it on the Kindle for $8.
Yeah, just like the physical book, there's a wait list. And we try to, what we buy, if there's 5 people waiting, we buy another copy to try to minimize the wait list. But it's the limitations of what the publishers, they think that, yeah. And they charge us more. So, what is good about it is we do have the CDR's network. So if we have 3 copies of something and someone else has 3 and no one is using their 3, we have access to them. So we are sharing all the resources among the libraries too. But it's a tough gig, the electronic world.
Are all the, I should know this, but are all the children's books all available digitally too? If you have whatever hard copies you have in the library?
Not all of them,
Not all.
no. But there's thousands. There's thousands of them. It's basically you buy an ebook just like you buy,
Yeah.
so you buy a physical copy and then you buy an electronic copy. So our network has a thing where they buy a bunch. They dedicate a certain amount of their money to buy a collection, that's a shared collection, and then individual libraries add in what they want. So if there's something that we want to have that is not in the shared collection, we can buy it, or we can buy an additional copy of it.
Thank you.
And we have actually one service now called Hoopla, which is unlimited. People have the same thing at the same time. So they're not the most popular titles. They're kind of a little bit off, but if you just really need an ebook or an audiobook, listen to the car, those are always
Is that
available.
an app you can download?
Yep. It's called Hoopla.
HOOPLA.
Yep. If you go to our website and go digital books, they're all the resources are there.
Anything else?
I've had a couple of just facts things. We're open, the state requires we open 50 hours a week. We're now open 51. Pre-pandemic, we were open 54. So we have adjusted our hours a little bit. Our community room use is up to 90% of pre-pandemic, which is pretty good. Mostly our evenings are really, really slow. And I think a lot of the groups that used to meet in the library have found other places to meet. And they have we haven't seen many Boy Scout and Girl Scout groups. I think they found other places for their meetings. Our circulation this year is 86% of pre-pandemic levels. So pretty happy with that. And actually downloadable audiobooks are up 60% over pre-pandemic levels. So people are coming to us to get electronic things. And our attendance for adult and children are exceeding or equaling pre-pandemic. Our teen attendance is down in the teen room, and I'm not sure why that is. I think the kids, that's for 8 to 12 graders. They've obviously found better things to do. Our middle school program is still huge. 20 to 30 kids a day are coming up to school.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Also phenomenal job with the historical museum.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Work over there.
So
Haven't been over there.
we're open today, so if after you're done here, we're here till 12:30, so you should peek in after the meeting is done. It isn't, we haven't been over. No, it's really, it's come a long way. And it's a lot of work, but a lot of help and a lot of it just looks professional. It looks like a museum and not, it just looks a lot better. Stop by. Every
Thank you.
second and fourth Saturday, open 9:30 to 12:30.
Thank you.
Thank
All right, thank you.
All right, Larry?
Morning.
I know. By the way, what is the deal with the tax?
You know,
Is there a budget line increase for better tax?
I honest to God, didn't they get horrible this year? They were like throw the thing in the- Yeah, we gave you guys the early versions. All the other ones we taped down. Sorry. They are awful this year, awful. And we bought new ones too. I had to tape it all up. Yeah, they're terrible. Sorry, guys.
all right. Oh, hey, we're making.
Uh-huh.
great time here. Moving along. Hey, Larry. Hey, thanks for coming in this morning. The floor is yours. So do you have anything that you want to present your budget?
Okay, well, as I sent some materials out to you. You'll reset them out for me, thank you. So I did a little bit of a survey with, towns in the area and, with with similar populations. And, most of them actually low in the Bellingham. And you see the results are, and as I said, I divided it by the population, thinking that was really that I could get kind of a sense of what the rate was. And, find it out, as I said, you see the results. Yeah, I think part of it, part of my motivation is that, and I actually was fortunate that I never had to have an opponent when I ran for town clerk. But also I never had the opportunity to talk about what I wanted to do and what I thought about the position and so on and so forth. And one of the things is that I honestly believe that the town clerk's position has been, well, let me put it this way. I'll put it in a positive way or a more positive way. It needs to be recognized as the pivotal department that it is, and that there is so much that goes on in the department that people are really very unaware of. And I did also include a copy of the Mass General laws that actually refer to the duties of the town clerk. And as I mentioned, not everyone is done because towns and the organization of the towns are a little bit different, so not every single one is followed. But there are a lot of areas that it touches. And within the town, there are a lot of areas that it touches as well. In fact, most departments have some activity or some dealings with the town clerk at one time or another. And on top of that, the recognition of that, also it needs to be recognized that the position has changed dramatically in the past few years. All of the, in terms of voting, everything that was implemented as an emergency situation during the COVID pandemic, have all become law. And that has increased the duties of the town clerk and the office in general. And I'll give you a for instance, and this is something that happens on a daily basis. We get from the Secretary of State's office all the registrations of people in the town on a daily basis. And we've always done that. And sometimes there were 4 names, sometimes there were 6 names, sometimes during election time, we had a couple of pages worth. Well, that task now has become, it takes an hour to 2 hours every day just to go through those.
What are they? Yeah.
These are registration. And the reason being that now various agencies are registering people to vote. Just automatically. The people don't even know they're being registered to vote. So what happens if every one of you update your license or renew your license, we get you down as a new registrant. And then we have to go in and make sure that it's a duplicate and so on and so forth, or add it if that's the case. So, and as an aside, just so everybody's aware, we have already gotten 2 that have contacted us and said that they were ineligible to vote. So this is the kind of situation that we're going to have in the future. I'm sure it's going to get worse.
So you're getting notification that they should be registered and they're telling you.
And we registered them because we have no recourse but to register. We have no idea what their status is or anything. It just comes through and we're obliged to register them. And they came forward to us. So, and I'm reporting it. I know it's going to go nowhere, but I'm reporting it anyway. And again, this year we're going to have people that are non-citizens or whatever their status may be, they're going to be able to get a license. And we're going to see more of that, I'm sure. But
The question I have for you is, I think, where the budget you presented with an increase in your salary, we want to talk about that. Is there anything else in the budget that we should be aware of, that's different from the years past that you're in need of?
no, other than it fluctuates from every year based on the election.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Why is administrative personnel down?
because we are going from a grade 10 that was at step 6, I believe, or whatever the longevity is, to a new
entry level, you're saying.
So I think, Larry, full disclosure, I talked to Dennis, and we appreciate all of that. I will speak for myself, and the other board members can speak on there. I'm perfectly fine with that increase. I did the numbers. I did an average. I dropped the top, dropped the bottom, did an average. I did all of that compared to towns. I also did my own research. I made some phone calls. I dug in, read some websites to see which towns had elected town clerk versus appointed town clerk, staff size, the whole bit. And it's clear that, and we also know that the town clerk position has become much different than it has in the past. It requires a strong skill set. And I'm personally not doubting your skill set at all. So I'm perfectly in favor. The one thought I had, one concern I had with your letter was that it intimated that you'd be back again next year for an increase. I prefer to deal with it now, personally, and want to know, where do you think your position should be? And the reason I'll say it that way, and the reason I'm saying it that way is because I don't want to have you come back and go through that entire process again. There could be a different board. Who knows? There's an election this year. I don't want you to go through that. So I prefer personally, and the other board members can speak for themselves, tell us where you want to be and not come back and increase your salary next year. I mean, that's kind of, if you have any thoughts on that, where you'd like to be?
I hadn't thought of it really in those terms, because I was worried about what I asked for, to be honest.
No, and that's fair. You shouldn't be worried. I mean,
Well, I mean,
you
when I say
built
worried, I
a
wasn't
case.
sure that-
You built a case, you did comparison, and it's fair. I mean, I think the town, the sentiment of this board has been that we want to compensate our leadership, equivalent to what other towns of our size and responsibility and their academic background, all those things. I think we've been clear in that position. So I don't think it's unfair of you to ask, but it's a matter of where do you want to be? So we're not doing this. So I'll just throw it out there. I did the high and the low, did an average, and I factored in the amount of full-time employees and part-time employees your department has compared to other towns that you compared with. And what I came up with is a number just shy of 90,000 a year. And I'm not saying if you walked out and no, that's great, but my thinking is that that's a number that we'd like to, that I'm comfortable with and think it would be important. But I don't want you coming back next year and bumping it from 90 to whatever. I don't want to go down that path. So I'm going to stop and let other members of the board, if they have any questions or commentary about what I just said. Go ahead, Larry.
A figure like that, it would be not only comparable to other towns and so on and so forth, and I understand how you did how you arrived at it. But it also fits in better with the other employees in town that are department head.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
I'm just saying, so.
Yeah, there's no question. And when I did the numbers on the population per salary, I did that. And obviously the math works. It all worked the same. When I did, I spun it a couple of different ways to make sure that, what I was doing was mathematically and statistically accurate, and it is. So, any from the board have anything they want to add?
No, I'm fine with the increase. I was fine with what you presented to us. Like Don said, I think you made a good argument for the position. And it will put us, I think, in a more stable position too, where it's an elected position going forward, so.
Mr. Conley?
I don't disagree with Dawn. I disagree with how it was presented. The other positions in the department heads we took up separately from the budget, so I didn't like how this came across. That said, we've spoken, an increase more than you've listed is appropriate, but I think it should be as of January 1st, so that it keeps the budget where it's supposed to be and bridges 2 years.
In other words, bump them up to 84 now.
No, I'm suggesting bumping him to 90 or even 92 but do it as of January first, so the impact on this year's budget is net neutral. And we've already taken care of next year. It's,
Dennis, thoughts, Mary? How does that change things?
January 1st of 2024.
yeah,
So
so it has a half year effect, so if it goes up 14,000 and it's a half year, it's a 7,000 impact on this budget. Has no impact, and it recognizes that, as Larry puts it, that he still may be coming back, the numbers dictate it, and then we already have the known number for the 25 budget.
So the dollar increase for FY 24 is the same as what's been
Yes.
presented. It's just-
Yes, that's what I was.
I mean, you could even, it's up 77.80. I mean, if we put it at half that, that means it's like 91 and change, so it has the same effect on this year's budget, and it gets in line with other towns. I mean, the comparison to other towns, I think if you take a town that has 8,000 people or 16,000 people, there is a minimum amount of time required for the 8,000. So that comparison to say that the Norfolk, if we would compare our population, should be 151,000 is kind of off. Because no matter what, you have to do X amount of work, whether you have 8,000 or 16,000.
Which is why statistically I dropped the high and the low when I came up with the number, because it does skew it. You can't just take the number as a whole, right? You can't do that in this comparison. So-
And again, the increase of 77, call it 78. Call it 7,000, just for numbers. If you put that into January 1st and bumped it up again, that's 91,000.
Do we happen to know, and I didn't have a chance to take a look, but of the towns that you've listed, which ones are appointed versus?
There's a combination.
There's a combination.
And if-
And that makes a big
I'm
difference.
gonna state right here and now, it shouldn't matter. Because the job. Doesn't matter if it's.
Although I did like look on website to find Uxbridge is an appointed,
Yeah.
let me see, what was the other one? I think it was it Norfolk? I'll have to go back to my notes, but there were two of the listed that were appointed as opposed to elected. And there is, you're seeing a kind of a change in, I was on a couple of webinars now that talked about, trends in municipal, administration, et cetera. And one of the big trends has been in some select boards are in favor, some aren't, moving the town clerk to an appointed position as opposed to an elected position. And there's pros and cons to either one. That, and in what from the pro, from this side versus the town clerk side, as Larry stated, we know that the requirements for the job are more demanding than they've ever been in the past due to all of the changing in the voting laws and regulations. It's just a lot more. It requires someone that has a lot of experience, more experience than, let's say somebody decides to run against Larry that has no experience, but because they're popular in town, they get voted as the town clerk. Now we don't have somebody like Larry with all of his experience, which could cause some serious issues, with filing notices properly, a number of things. It's a big deal. I'm in favor of, but on the flip side, you've got a board here. And if somebody wanted to be appointed, Larry say resigned, some good buddy could get appointed. However, historically, I've not seen that with this board in previous boards. Usually this board, and just the direction has always been, we're going to appoint the most qualified for that position as a general rule. So, and that would require a change in our charter. That would require a vote at town meeting to make that change. We couldn't just make that change. So someone would have to say, hey, that's where we'd have to support an article to make that change. I'm not suggesting we do that, but that's definitely a trend. And Dennis and I have had a brief conversation about it. And I've actually talked to Larry about it too. And he has his opinions. We have similar, but they're just on opposite sides, He's more concerned with the board making an appointment, someone that doesn't have experience as opposed to the voters. The other way, I don't think the board would ever, as long as I'm on the board, would ever appoint someone that had no experience just because they were my cousin or uncle or whatever, do it regardless. So that's, I don't know if anybody wants to add anything, but I don't think we're not voting on this today, but I think we take Michael's idea off and just understand it a little bit better, the impact it has on the budget and see where we're at. And it gets Larry to where Larry wants to be now, but it also, next January, bumps him up to 92,000. Which is a good thing. So it gets him where he wants to be. You know, with your budget, right?
No,
No,
essentially, for the fiscal year, it's the same amount of money as
Same amount of money.
Larry has proposed.
right,
But the
That's what I
increase
mean.
would kick in January first.
That's
So
what
it's
I
the
mean.
same dollar amount, and then, of course,
Right,
starting
Then we
in
take the hit in
2025, it's the full amount.
right. I
The
understand,
full amount being.
but it gets him where he wants to go, but also recognizing, we recognize your value and want that bump. And looked at making that a higher number than you were coming in. Okay, that makes sense?
Are you okay with that,
Yeah.
Larry?
I'm not quite understanding it, to be
Well, I
honest.
think it's fair to know the area, you know, maybe sometimes we can go through and so in Dennis understand it. I wasn't quite sure, now I completely understand.
It delays the raise 6 months, and when you get the raise, it's double what you're asking for.
But there will be an increase, or is there?
July 1.
No,
No, nothing.
the
on July.
increase will be January.
January first, but it's basically, you're gonna bump up from the 76, you're gonna bump up to 91 and some
Whatever
change.
number. So that.
So basically, we offering you, more than you asked for, and I think it's very proper way to do it. Obviously, the financially, we're doing good in town. And like Don was saying, that you recognizing your value, and I think it's a win-win on the both sides. I think that's what we're trying to say. Am I right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we've been
If-
trying to, I've been trying to advocate for you for a couple of years now, and I appreciate the amount of effort you put into this, and basically we're acknowledging that and basically doubling it, so.
And. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's
Tim,
fine.
you have a question?
Yeah, I just, I don't want to sit here and be a cheerleader, but I just want to bring to your attention, since Larry's taken over in that department, we have a lot more interaction with him. He gets a lot of information right away when people are coming in, registering, and with businesses, different businesses in town. He's over in my office saying, hey, did you know this? This is what's going, someone's registering here. And it kind of gives us a flag for in the zoning end, and it helps us out. We get right out in front of it. So, he's been pretty interactive with, working with our department anyway, just.
I don't think there's any doubt of value. I think from a budgetary standpoint, what we're proposing helps you for 2025 and not have to come back and do the same thing.
All right, anything else?
I do want to say one other thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna put this in a nicer way as I can. Things are fantastic in my office.
Very good.
Yep, yeah, we're very.
Glad to hear that.
Very good, yep.
Should have been getting hazard pay.
I think we just offered that
I
to
think
you.
Like that comment, Larry, that was inappropriate.
Sorry.
The elections budget, or anything in the elections budget that we need to vote on?
We need to talk about the, elected budget. I'm gonna come before you on March 6th to talk about the upcoming election, the local election. And how it's gonna be handled in terms of what kind of, what kind of election we want to hold, whether you want to do early voting or not early voting, or want to do mail-in voting or not mail-in voting. And again, it has nothing to do with absentee. Absentee is there, and that will not go away. But the way they actually initially, when they wrote the law, they didn't think about local elections, and they said all elections. So I actually called the Secretary of State's office and asked them if all elections. If somewhere in there, it was implied that it was only state elections. And they said, well, no, not as it stands now. So they recently revised it so that they give the towns the option. As to whether in local elections, they want to do those extra hours.
So we've had this conversation, Larry. I know we're gonna bring it up at our next meeting,
Yeah.
but I was gonna just, bring it up in under other business, but since you raised it, I'll just bring up the topic. Larry's talking about is the state say it's okay for town elections to have mail-in and early voting. Well, the burden's all on us and it's unfunded. So that would mean if we voted to say, yes, we'll do early voting here, have it staffed and mail-in voting, it means we have to send out 12,000 plus ballots. That's an outrageous expense. Or when we have a town election, typically we have about 500 registered voters show up. So as being fiscally responsible doing the budget, there's no way I would be in favor of sending out 12,000 ballots and staffing 2 weeks prior for a town election. This isn't a state or federal election. There's just no way I would do that. So, we'll address it on the 6th, take a vote, or we can opt to do it now. How does the rest of the board feel?
I agree with you, it's,
Yeah.
just, I mean, if it's really responsible, just, there's no reason to send the 12,000, I mean, like you said, we don't get more than 500-600 people for the local elections.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, that's all.
Yeah.
But I think from a fiscal standpoint, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to send out 12,000 ballots.
If anybody wants one, all they have to do is call up and ask.
Yeah, they want to.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absentee is not going away.
No.
So can we take a vote now? No, we can't till on
No, we
6th.
need to do a public hearing.
Yeah, we do.
This is a public hearing? Okay, well, we're talking about it, but we're okay, but we'll do a public hearing on March 6th.
It's already been advertised.
Yeah.
so.
Yep, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for keeping me on.
And there are some other issues around the election that we need to talk about as well. Okay. Well, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Larry.
So Larry, in the elections budget, though, there is a proposal for an additional part-time person.
Yes,
Okay, would you like to describe that?
Yes. okay, so, as I mentioned in the write-up, that we're at the level that we were in 2014. We have one part-time person, 19 hours, 15 to 19 hours. And there are times and the office is actually rather busy. We have people coming in all the time, to do all kinds of business with us. And as I said, the workload has expanded. So we're gonna have the part-time person that we had before. So when the assistant's position is filled, it will be 2.5. Would be 2.5 FTEs. The extra person would be a lesser number of hours. And I mean, it would be nice if we could do it seasonally. I don't know how that works. If we could do it kind of when we need it, call somebody, and if we can get somebody that will do that, and if it's permissible to do that, then that would be great. But we are having times when we do need extra help, and it's mostly around the election.
Only senior tax workers do use,
One,
why wouldn't we use 5?
we could do that, but
or 10?
the thing is that, they can only do certain things. And to teach them to do a lot of other things, to help out, it seems like a little bit of a waste of time because they may not decide to come back next year. Or whatever, they might not be able to come back next year. But we can do that, and a lot of towns do that.
When you talk about seasonal, are we talking winter months? And I'm thinking, are there snowbirds that would love a job 5 months of the year? Or?
No, it depends. It depends on the election year, and it depends on when the elections are scheduled. So like next year, we'll have an election in 2024. We'll have an election in March. We'll have ours in probably June, I hope. Depends on how that goes. Our local election. Then we'll have another election in September and another one in November. So it's depends on the year.
Yeah.
A lot of elections.
Anything else?
And the only other budget you have is the town common. Is there anything specific in there that you want to bring to the board?
And as it's presented, I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah, I looked at it. I didn't see
Yeah.
anything.
If anybody has a specific question, you can ask me.
I have a specific request.
What's that?
Let's update the children's swing set Let's get something,
Actually, that's one of the things I want to do.
get something that's a little bit larger, something where it's not only for, 2-year-olds. We need something for.
We've actually been talking about
Yeah, I'd like
that.
to.
The thing is, everything is very expensive.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
There's no question.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
It is very expensive.
The town common does get rented.
Yeah, but it's only rent, we only receive rent payment from people that are out of town. So most of the people use it for free.
But what if you, I mean, this is, allowed like food trucks that came in and charged the food truck? And you had something along those lines, so we would draw more people to that area, which is very nice. Food trucks are very popular, people love them. I'm not just talking about cousins, but if we were able to put something along those lines, you might be able to, I don't know, rent a spot to these food trucks and generate a little bit of revenue over there, which could offset putting in a nice playground. And I mean, it's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, no, it
The
is.
ground's amazing.
Yeah.
Winter, it's, the lights a little bit.
But we have eased the restrictions to allow. For so that, I guess, is the first step, beginning to do that.
Think about how we could really generate some revenue out of that space.
The other thing that we've been working on is trying to get a farmer's market.
Oh, that would be actually.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're working with a couple of different people to try and get that going. So that would generate a little bit of, I mean, it wouldn't be tremendous, but it'd be a little bit of income.
Something.
We actually just got a couple of nice donations recently. We had $1,000 donation from someone who actually purchased 2 benches for dedication. And then we have $1,000 come from someone just because she wanted to do it. She's not even a resident of Bellingham.
Very nice. Okay.
So, yeah, we are thinking about this reset, but hopefully we can cover it that way.
Sounds good. Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I was gonna do that. So we take a 10-minute? That work? A final break? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go every year.
All right, we're doing well. All right, Tim, you're up.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
I just wanted to start with, just give you a little update of what our department has done. The annual report isn't out yet, so this is kind of just the numbers. Just so you know, and I know, a lot of us talk all year long and we have a lot of meetings and you know what's going on, but obviously,
Yeah.
Tim, which budget are we starting in? Or just overview?
from my budget would be building.
Okay,
Building, the number?
no, just like the tab, I'm like, are we under inspection?
Yeah.
Are we under building?
Yeah, it's inspection, right?
Yeah, I guess it is inspection, yeah.
24.
Yes, okay.
So, our department, and I know you guys know the last probably 3 years or so, I mean, we've been pretty much the even keel as far as being, activity goes. We're pretty close with the numbers for the last 3 years of what we've taken in, number of permits issued. So, between residential and commercial, we've issued, right around 1,300 permits. And that ranges everything, that's new construction, that's, additions, pools, all kinds of stuff, everything that requires a permit. The breakdown is it's like about 1,100 for residential and 200 for commercial. So the estimated work for those permits for residential was $32 million. That's the value, and then on the commercial end, which covers everything that, business, industrial, suburban, all that stuff, is 28 million. So the fees collected, on that end, between building, electric, plumbing, gas, is probably right around 900,000. It's been pretty even the last 3 years. I mean, it's been right around 1 million or just under. So this is pretty good, I think,
Year to date.
yeah, this is 22, yeah. So, I think with what's already been approved, I've vetted out through planning board and zoning for projects, I can see 23, with, you know, what's gonna be started. It's gonna be close, you know, and maybe even, you know, through 24, we get this project out back that's gonna be starting. They're starting to come around now. They haven't done much, but, they're starting to, set up meetings and,
Pre-construction meeting on that next
Yeah,
week,
yep.
on the Locuster project.
Oh,
That's
great.
so,
What's held it up?
A lot of it has to do with DEP, because I've had a lot of conversations with Mr. Loguser, but it was, there were some issues with regard to the water withdrawal and the sewage. Charles River Pollution Control has a heavy, and a lot of involvement when it's close to, within the basin and buffer zone, and obviously the Charles is out there. We don't think of the Charles River being out there, but it's a tributary to it, but that's the biggest, hookup with that project. They just received an extension with the planning board for, they're supposed to start within a year of their approvals, and, that was coming up, so they just had that extended, and they're, as I say, they're having a pre-construction meeting next week, so they want to get out there in the spring and start, putting in their infrastructure.
yeah, so they wanna, you know, we'll do a construction meeting and they'll give us a narrative based on, you know, how they wanna start the project. They have a lot of infrastructure to do in regards to, before they started, they have earth removal to do, and it's a lot of material. So they have to take the site down to a certain level, and that required a special permit, for earth removal. So during that process for the special permit, you know, there's a lot of logistics, how you're gonna do it, what routes you're gonna go, where we don't want them to go, hours to do it, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a big project, you know, it's a big undertaking for that. So we're gonna, you know, the emphasis at our meetings are gonna be, you know, look, how are you gonna do this without disrupting, you know, our traffic, you know, time, stuff like that, so.
Where's their access point? Is it just from Mill Street?
Yeah, at this point, it's just at Mill Street. They have a, you know, I don't know what we're gonna find out, you know, what they're planning on doing on the other end. Because, I mean, at some point, we're gonna need two accesses, you know, when they start going, and that's you guys know, right at the Trimark entrance.
Yeah.
There's a big piece of ledge, you know.
Yeah.
You guys see that?
Yeah.
We showed everybody that.
Yeah.
They have to climb through that, so I don't know what their plan is, but we're gonna find out next week. But that's a big, you know, there's a lot of work to do before they even put a house in the ground. And they did propose doing it in phases too. You know, we phased it when Jim was here and with planning board, so, you know, in order for them to get going and, you know, make some money along the way, they let them phase it so they can do a section. Get a section ready and go and have some sales, I guess, you know, so, but prior to that, they're gonna have another. And that's in their decision.
How long is the project is gonna take?
How long?
Yeah.
Well, it's based on sales, I mean, I guess, the project up on the hill, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, just before the VFW Eastland Partners. They phased that project. They didn't know how long it would take, they were saying, hey, we'll be there for 5 years. But they have, the first phase is sold out, the second phase is sold out, and they haven't even started it yet.
So the other day.
There's a lot of activity
Every
and
day
a
you
lot,
go by, there's another, it seems like a
Yeah.
whole new house is framed.
a lot of interest, and, market's still strong, I mean, they went up on their price, I talked to him like about a week and a half ago, and he said he had 2 houses left in the second phase that weren't asked for, and they're probably gone now.
Even with
What
the
are they-
interest rates. are-
Well, so they started in the 6s, in the mid 6s, and now they're up in the 7s.
What's the size lot?
Or right,
10,000, just like Weathersfield.
This small one.
Quarter acre, did you say? Quarter acre?
Yeah, basically.
right on top of it.
Yeah,
And that is a cluster development, so
Yeah.
there's a tremendous amount of open.
yeah, it's
space.
a huge parcel of open space. You know, so that's what people want, I guess, you know, they don't want to take care of the stuff.
Yeah.
They're 20
everywhere.
There's some good designs. I circulated some of the designs out. There's like 5 different designs. And they're all nice, you know, they're all, they blend in together. They're anywhere from, I think, 2,200 to 2,700 or 2,600 square feet. So they're not small.
No.
you know.
Yeah, but they're not astronomically big for
No.
$700,000 either, and you don't have that much land, so it's crazy.
Kind of close together, but you know, that's
Yeah.
the design. You know, sort of all
That's kind of the
match.
trend though now, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people aren't really interested in having a garden and a big lawn.
that price range, you know, they're probably traveling out of town. most of them.
Oh, yeah, no, I get that.
So that project's going, you know, they're very professional, they're doing a good job, you know, real confident.
Nice.
Their product.
Yeah, some of the nice
Yeah,
architects.
the landscape.
Yeah.
They're doing all right.
One of the big changes that we've been talking about is they are all, zero fossil fuels. They're
All
all,
electric.
all electric as far as,
Yeah.
no oil, no gas. And that's the latest, latest standard as far as the state building code goes.
Our energy code is getting really, really strict, so it's really changing the way people do things.
So their whole, everything is electric, so what would that like cost potentially? I know we probably.
I don't know,
I
they
can't
have,
imagine it.
they do estimate it, I haven't seen any of the HERS reports, but they have to provide them at closing. So they have the annual energy usage, you know, heat
Are
loss.
they all radiant heat type stuff?
No, they're heat pumps.
Central, same way you would with central air or central heat, the heat is produced with a heat pump. Like what you'd have with a mini split, only it's not a mini split inside, it's.
What I have for my pool.
Are those I know we're talking about.
They could, yeah. Part of it is. No, it's not part of it, but, so with the,
Do it right away.
with the code now, you have to, they have to designate the southwest, exposure on a roof. So that has to be on the plan. So they disclose the percentage. It doesn't have to have it because not every roof faces that direction, you know, but, they do have to mark it on that. And so they, on the plan, on the roof plan, there's an area that shows, future solar. So, and you know, that's by, it has to have it. So, so it's a lot of changes, and it's same thing with Bungay, you know, Bungay is the same thing, they're in that too, they're, anything after January, you know, has a real strict guideline, so, down here, it's gonna be the same thing.
And Lotus is cluster too, that's.
Yeah.
But there's ton, resident, single family, but there's also. like
Yeah,
60
there's a
townhomes.
small percentage of
60
multi.
of them, I was reading.
Is there that many?
Yeah. I was reading it in the-
I haven't really looked at it, but, yeah, this is townhomes. Yeah. So, I think those are like on the outskirts of it, you know, on the outer edges, and then the middle are all divided up into lots, but single family. As the road goes out, they're on the outer edge, but, so they're gonna be getting going, we're looking forward to meeting with them and, seeing what they have to, say as far as how their narrative reads, and we're gonna get going, so anyway, that's so the other things too is, Depot Street's underway, they've cleared the whole lot down there, we're having Chris and I are gonna go down and have a meeting with them this week, in regards to certain things that they, you know, they want some guidance on, and, so they're gonna start digging foundation down there. And that building, is very similar to the Maple Street warehouse and Trimark. They're tilt panel construction, so they're these great big, well, those down there, I think are 33 feet or something like that, in height. So what they do is they put the foundation in, they pour the slab, and then they form up the walls on the slab that they poured, and then they tilt them up. They're called tilt
What they
construction.
did at Victory, it's what they did.
Yes, so Trimark called them in from Pennsylvania. There's a company in Pennsylvania that does casting, precasting, and they hauled in sections and brought them in. These, Amazon on Maple Street and this one here, they're casting in place. So they'll cast it on that slab and they'll do a design underneath the slab, you know, with chamfer strips and stuff like that to put it, so when they stand it up, it looks like, you know, there's sign in the wall, you know, maybe so it's not just a
And it's
flat
like
wall.
stamped concrete.
Yes,
It looks
yeah.
really nice. The challenge is after they're done standing it all up, then they get these beams holding up, you know, braces for weeks on end, then they take them off. Problem is they have all this extra concrete available and they'll spend a couple of days jackhammering, and I'm gonna tell you, it was some of the worst 2 days. They need to let the residents know before they're gonna, if they're gonna do that part of their process on site, let them know, give them advance warning so that people can get them. I'm telling you, it was awful.
Really?
It was just god awful.
Never heard any of that.
You didn't live in front of it.
Yeah. Well,
Believe me,
my phone rings all the time.
Jim talked to you about it, because I
Yeah.
called him
Yeah.
and Bill O'Connell, and oh yeah, they knew I was ripping. because it was just so loud, so obnoxious, the big hydraulic. Boom, 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 boom,
They gotta be
boom,
careful.
All day long.
Yeah, they gotta be careful with that. So, when they brace those walls, these are huge sections. It's
Yeah.
Dangerous. What happens is the wind load. When you have, it's like a big sail, wind load is very important. They don't take those braces down until the roof system is in
But
place.
yeah,
So
it was a
real
long
dangerous.
time.
Those things actually move. It's kind of scary.
It looked dangerous.
They're professionals and they do it all the time. They're doing warehouses all over the East Coast, New Jersey. They have huge warehouses, just on and on, These are small compared to what they're doing everywhere.
A lot are, they're a million plus.
Yeah. So anyway, so Depot Street's underway, and I'm starting to get some inquiries about, the corner on Mechanic as well, just so you know.
The more property?
Yeah, the more property. I had a phone call, permitting agency. That's what they do. They reach out first and they kind of, gather information. And so they're gonna start demolition of those things soon, I guess, they just started calling, so I would say a couple of months.
But that's a smaller.
That's a small,
150,000
yeah, that's
square feet or less.
Yeah. But it's gonna be right there on the corner, so it's gonna look like it's bigger. So people are gonna say, geez, what's going on here? Because it's right there. These larger warehouses that are set back, you don't get that, because they're kind of proportionate, they're off the
The
beaten path.
aesthetics in that design is good for that.
Yes,
Driving it.
remember
that, yeah.
welcome to Bellingham.
Yeah, that'll look nice, hey, the landscaping there and a nice wall, and I think it's gonna definitely add to, coming into town. It's gonna look nice on the corner. So that's the warehouse stuff. Other than that, that's pretty much just an overview. I mean, just moving to the budget, my budget hasn't changed, other than contractual, with the various unions, their percentage cost of living. If anybody has any questions on it, but there really wasn't any, so we have two, administrative assistants. One primarily does Board of Health, one does building, but everybody does everything. We also have a part-time person in the office that, helps out a lot, we've been really busy. I would really have liked to added a full-time person, but it's just not in the budget now. So we've kind of made, we change our schedule up depending on how busy it is. So, and the girls are flexible with that. So that works really good. They only have 35 hours. So, it's hard because they get their, 35 hours goes quick. So, this part-time person really works out really well. That part-time person has been there since I got there. But it's changed, people come and go, and the person we have now is really working out great. She started as a senior work-off, she's retired, and Judy Black, I don't know, if some of you have probably met her. Yeah, so, but she was at the fire department, and then she was interested.
Solar.
Yeah. He made the mistake of telling me, hey, this woman's really good. I'm like, oh, really? Can I meet her?
Sure.
Yeah, so, that really was good because she picked up like that,
Well, your comments on there are similar to what Larry's looking for someone who wants to work a certain number of hours, but not tied to a 52-week schedule. Yeah, I should like to switch.
There's people out there, there's definitely people out there.
She's good right
No
where
way.
she is.
I'm not giving her up, she's,
I do have one question on the budget. I think it's to Mary or Dennis. So under the request versus the town administrator, we went from 2,000 to 0 on the purchase of copy machines. Are we looking in multiple departments to do capital under 50K to make these purchases?
So, in this particular case, what happened with that is that we just moved the expense out of Tim's operating budget, and he's gonna be using his revolving fund to cover his copier lease. But one of the things that we are working towards, we've talked with Karen, is each department has copiers in their office, and typically the department heads have managed the procurement of their own copier. And some of them have different needs, but what we've talked with Karen about is trying to get our arms around that, consolidating our use of copiers so that we have a master lease for the machines in the building. So over time, that will be phased in, but this was just simply a budgeting mechanism for us to move that expense to the revolving fund.
yeah, definitely need the copy machine in our department anyway.
Yeah.
Just,
No, I mean, seeing friends on FinCom here made me wonder whether we were changing and making purchases on capital under 50.
Not necessarily, yeah, and this isn't a purchase, this is just the ongoing lease that we've already got in place, yeah.
On my budget?
Right.
Yeah, right now, I'm not, we just finished the lease on ours and it's still working, so as soon as it goes, we'll have to do something, but we just kind of letting it ride, might just carry a maintenance program on. The other, the other part of what I'm doing is, probably, I don't know, Dennis, it's been a good year, over a year maybe. I've helped out a lot with the, town buildings, you know, as far as maintenance goes, so we did,
Facilities manager.
yes.
Great job with it.
So, you know, look, that's right up my alley. I pitched in a lot, you know, helping out. We did create a small position for it. You know, it just creates more hours. It's me on call, but I'm on call anyway with building. And it does, I do some week, you know, it's weekend stuff. We're just checking on the buildings, you know, in the winter and stuff like that. It's cold, but we do have a, I've evaluated most of the buildings that I take care of this building, the old town hall. I picked in a little bit, you know, Doug and I talk, you know, he runs stuff by me and, you know, stuff like that, but I help out with the fire department. We're working on small stuff with their,
COA.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and anybody, if they have any, you know, need anything, you know, whatever, I'll take a look at whatever. We do have some stuff, scheduled, you know, for capital, you know, and certainly our buildings are getting older. They don't last forever, everybody knows that. So we have various projects set up. You know, for a while, it's been tough to get equipment and stuff like that for some of the buildings, but it's starting to free up and we have some stuff scheduled to be changed mechanically.
Tim is also serving as our OPM, which is a requirement of project manager for the administrative offices. We have to bring somebody on at the very start. And it's under, the estimated cost was under 1.5 million, so we're able to use somebody in-house. That saves us a considerable expense as well.
So we've been definitely doing a lot of meetings with that and trying to get that in and they're working on a final number, you know, to bring the building in under. So we're close now and you know, a lot of us have been working together on that and think.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, this week, we're gonna have to, we'll meet again and we're just waiting for I think I just got an email. I saw it just before I came in here from the architect. So he's got some information for us, so I'll set up a meeting for that, but we're real close on that, trying to pull it down, so where it's gonna be at.
When would be the time to get the board an update from the committee?
I would say as soon as we have the final numbers, probably the second meeting in March, I think it'd be a great
Excellent.
time, because there is gonna be an article on the warrant to raise funds for the actual construction, so come in and
That'd
have
be great.
Jesse come in and talk about that,
Thank you.
administrative offices. I know, Joe's been on that committee and has had his role in meetings fairly regularly, so we've got, you know, a number of people involved in that process.
Yeah, I missed the last meeting with COVID. but-
Doesn't mean you're not on it, but you're
Yeah.
on it, yeah.
I'm saying we have a nice connection with, FinCom and Capital.
Excellent.
That's great as well.
So, that's getting close as far as, final information and design and everything, so. We'll bring it in front of you guys so you can see.
But how lucky Jesse is.
Right.
Don did 33 years, Jesse comes in and gets his brain.
It's just gonna close right into a new office.
Wow. Are you gonna invite Don in so he can sort of tear up a little bit?
Gotta have to at this point.
Are you gonna get out the field or are you just gonna stay in that kitchen?
Yeah, handle his office.
We'll have to send Don when you clean up over here, a piece of paneling in a frame.
He actually.
Okay.
No, they put it together.
Oh, I missed that. I saw the shovel and all that. but
I moved this file cabinet, cut a square out and put it in.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, I don't know.
Nice after liquor.
I saw the liquor and all posters.
The posters
I
are
didn't realize they were from.
Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
For that, no, we will be, this year, we'll be doing some painting. We're gonna take care of the old town hall. Trim's starting to really look bad, and so we have that set up. It's gonna be painted, trim's gonna be replaced, and then this town hall is gonna get some attention too. It's really starting to show.
Could I ask a request too? So what we're doing, you know, the roadway and the whole bit is gonna look really nice with the stone walls. I've said this to Dennis in the past, and you're gonna paint up the old town hall, make it look nice. I'd really like to see a shrubbery design, because what's there now just doesn't look good. It looks old and dated, and I'd like to see something that really, when you drive from that end, you see our beautiful town hall. I'd love to see some just update. the
Well, I think,
landscape. It's
yeah.
not nice.
With that being said, look, the Domino's building is gone.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, once they finish that, we're gonna work and we're gonna see what we're gonna do with that, shape it up, make it look good. Probably move the fence too and incorporate that area to the existing front and just make it look good. I mean, that was the goal.
Yeah.
And eventually put a nice sign up there too.
Yeah.
That's on the, definitely.
No.
We've done a lot of work, you know, with the historic buildings, you know, we've cleaned all that up. You know, so that's looking good. And I think just a nice little simple landscaping plan out front. I don't know, maybe something with the split rail fence around the corner, make it look
Nice.
you know, keep that small town look, but nice. And I mean, what a great addition that is out front.
It really
Looks
is.
great, you know. Once that road is in and everything, it's really gonna look good. You know, and that's what,
And I
once
think-
that building, you know, once we were dying to get that building down.
Wow.
It's such a
Now,
nice-
I've been digging Tony Corey to knock his other building.
He's working on that, actually.
I know, because I keep.
They've been doing environmental on it, so they're getting ready to do that. I don't know what he's gonna put there, but they are gonna take it down. It's too bad, that building, that house is, I don't know what.
The one right
circuit
across the
is,
street.
yeah.
White one.
Is that,
First public library.
was that
Downstairs.
owned by
The
Thayer?
home,
Yeah.
They had a book collection.
Was that owned by Thayer at one point, or was it
Yeah, the Eldridge.
Eldridge? Yeah, okay, it was always Eldridge, yeah. Yeah, but that in the day really looked nice. The Eldridge that owned it, he used to keep that, and we used to ride our bikes up and down the street. You couldn't drive on his lawn because he was right out there, you know. We used to sit at the wall in front of the drugstore, you know, next to the drugstore, we'd ride down, but yeah, it was always impeccably maintained. It's too bad. But
Thank you.
that's the way it is.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. What's that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
You're next, Justin. Nice knowing you. buddy.
Well, police is here, I believe,
Police
right?
is here.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Meeting for the police chief.
Yeah. What's that?
So we get started.
Final budget meeting,
Final
chief.
budget meeting.
I was gonna bring the handkerchiefs.
No. I think
Dear,
I think myself and for the board and board can certainly say the fun in mind, but I want to thank you very much for the number of years of service. This is your final budget meeting. We appreciate your diligence in preparing the budget, but not just how you are in the town and achieve.
It's been a good ride, it really has.
Thank you very much.
This is my 23rd budget.
That's right.
We've seen the good times, you know, we've seen negotiations with Dennis with 6% raises, which is like, whoa.
Yeah.
And we've seen personnel disappear to working with a quarter of your force to the good times when we had, you know, multiple, you know, guys where we could run extra sectors, we could do all kinds of proactive, crazy community stuff that gets limited. So I find a lot of the time that I've been here, I've had to adjust my style many times. You'll all see it in the bulletin, by the way, so.
yeah, skid marks across your.
No,
Can we?
And we've been through a lot of things. I mean, when I first started, we started, you know, the department and we had 9/11 right away, changed the whole style of policing, terrorism, everything else we had never dealt with.
We had the anthrax scares where we're dealing with white powders. Now all of a sudden we're working with postal people and we're becoming chemists that, people are afraid to touch their mail. We had the Washington DC went through a phase with snipers on highways. We work with state police on, our off ramps, everything. And we had the COVID-19 totally changed things. And now we have the police reform, which we're going through a lot of stuff, basically with updating all our files with training and discipline and centralized databases and stuff. So each thing that's come about in my career, we've had to change our style of policing and how we approach everything in the, not only the town, but everywhere else. So it's been quite a roller coaster. So anyway, we'll move on. What we have in front of us is a budget. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get our complement of officers back to where we used to be years ago, little by little. I think what happens is we lose a lot of people in the meantime, so it kind of throws a wrench into that. Retirements, transfers, injuries, whatever. So it's been a steady progress. We've lost quite a few guys. We're down to a quarter of our force. Say we were working like 8 guys out of 32, 33 at one point. So we even got to the point where we had to pull our SROs, get rid of motorcycles and stuff like that. But we're slowly on a rebound. We're starting to get personnel back. I've got my 2 SROs back in the schools. We're slowly starting to get a lot of recruits coming in now that a lot of the senior officers like, Lenny Goslin, Jen Goslin, Doug Houston, a lot of the senior people have moved out. And that was the rationale the last time we were here with the promotions, to get some of the senior men, some supervisory that have some experience to be supervisors. So a lot of changes in the department that we're going through right now, a lot coming up in the future couple of years. So the budget in front of you, if you look at my line items, in the salary side, I believe there might be 15 line items. I believe 13 of them got adjusted for contractual reasons. That's the bulk of the salary right there. I mean, a lot of the changes were contractual that we had to catch up on. Some were 2 years, like with the management, adjustments here and there, 1%, 3%. So there's been adjustments made on the salary side that I would say 90% of it's contractual obligations, at least on the salary side. So right now, we've got 1 recruit in the academy. We're working on the next batch to replace more of the shortfalls coming up, and I think you're going to see more and more. We have some senior guys coming up that might be ready. We have some injuries going on that we don't know what their status is going to be. These are things you have to plan on for the future, because if guys just all of a sudden have to get out and you've got no process in place to start recruits, it's a long, lengthy process of a 6-month academy, pre-screenings. It's tough to recruit people to transfer over sometimes for other various reasons, but for the most part, we're still in a transition of backfilling a lot of positions and trying to get the numbers back up to where we were years ago.
To the backfilling point, I know we just signed 7 letters for academy slots. So we've got 7 officers going, or candidates going in the next couple of months, hopefully, if the academies are there. So I'm gonna guess 80% of your department's going to be certainly less than 10 years of service.
There's a lot of turnover and you're gonna have a lot of young blood. But the main goal is hopefully with the next chief will be the same. Keeping the cops in the school is vital. 1 is okay. I find we have 2 in there and you always need a backup. It's kind of similar to my detectives. It's good to have a detective, but you always need that second guy for the workload and to work with the court officer also. Days off, vacations, training. I've got 3 of them in an office, 2 detectives and a court officer that kind of work hand in hand together, backfilling each other's days off, covering for each other. We need to kind of put the round pegs in the round holes, I guess. But this budget's not your normal budget. You have steps, you have various educational degrees that fall under 2 different formulas. The dinosaurs like me that get the old Quinn bill versus the guys now that get the different educational steps. Not only on the police side with the contract, but also on the dispatcher side. There's various steps there that have to be looked at. So it's not just, we have so many dispatchers, here's what they get paid and here's your total. Everything is a mix. I mean, you have guys that have the seniority that, are on the top steps. You have a lot of new people coming in at the bottom steps and they fall into different degree categories. So this budget has a lot of working. It's just your normal, let's slap something together and say, we get 30 guys, here it is, and carry on, so thank God for my 2 administrative assistants. They're great with crunching numbers with Mary. Every time there's a question, we've gone over everything with Dennis and Mary, to make sure we're all
on the same page with this, so. I don't know if you want any more of that, or if you have a question on a certain line item, we can pull out the sheet itself and, see what the breakdown says and go over some of that way.
Chief, just one other point, the salaries reflect 19.2%. That does include 2 years of increases, as well as some things that are rolled into the salary. So although it looks like a 20% salary increase in 2 positions as well. So there's quite a bit in there, and it is broken down in the chief's narrative.
And I think you'd have to admit, I don't know how the fire chief went, but we are busy. I mean, this town is growing, and, you know, we look at all the stuff being brought in, you know, with planning and zoning, and it's nice to have, but there is an impact on us. There really is. I mean, everybody, school, water. I think when you get down to a point where you're shorthanded, you get to a reactive state where you're doing nothing but reacting to calls instead of having some proactive work out there in the community, you know, socializing with people, having programs going on. So we'll get to a point, and fire's busy. When we chase fire with every one of their calls, plus our calls, dispatch is very crucial, you know. That dispatch center is unbelievable. It just doesn't stop, you know, all hours of the day and night.
Question for you. So, fire chief said that, you know, kind of reiterate what you said. You said that, he made a comment about needing 36 staff, and he said, like police, we but you have 32. You don't even have 32 right now.
Was he talking about the formula?
Two
It's
per
like the
thousand.
basic 2 per thousand, maybe?
Yeah. He suggested that your department has 36. but
He
you don't
did
have
suggest that, but I know you don't.
No, what's our population, 17 maybe?
Yeah,
So our goal would probably be to get up to
Well, what do
34.
you
or so.
actually have funded here?
yeah.
We have 29, and we're putting 4 in there.
That's gonna
So there'll be 33,
Including yourselves?
yes, including the administration. Yeah. So the goal would be,
What would be, based on the numbers, 34
Yeah.
plus? you?
we've had as good as 35 before in the past, which has kind of been the goal to try to get back up to that area, because I don't see things going down as far as population go in this town right now.
No, it's going up.
Right.
So look at all the building that's gonna
Right.
happen, residential.
And to have new recruits.
50 families.
Right, to have new recruits in the budget, it's gonna be more or less, not, a lot of it's not gonna be to gain more bodies, it's gonna be to start backfilling some of the ones that are getting ready to leave. We're trying to plan for the next steps coming up, so be a little proactive with that, with the senior guys, the injuries and stuff that I had mentioned, so. And if I leave and they bring somebody from the outside, that's a wash. If I leave and somebody gets promoted up, then you create the bottom slot. So you have to look at all these different variables that are going on right now. There's a lot of things going on right now.
Chief, I got a question for you. Probably Dennis probably can answer that too. Have you ever done a study, you know, like, you know, what's the number of people in daytime with all the warehouses and businesses in town compared to residents are 17,000, but what's the number average daytime, you know, someone hanging around town?
Right.
People who work in the, for instance, like, you know, the Amazon building, you know, it's Dunkin' Donuts.
Employees.
Yeah, employees and the
Yeah,
people in
yeah.
town, it's not 17,000. Have you ever done that kind of study, or did we look into it, or?
Never seen it.
Have not.
Or any idea?
Difficult to know how many people are leaving to go.
Right,
So
yeah.
that's- Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
People leaving
Right.
the town for coming
My
in.
assumption would be that it's a wash.
Yeah.
Most people who live here, it's a bedroom community. People leave the town to work, so,
And most of those warehouses are 24/7, so they have shifts.
Yeah.
yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts, Best Buy, Amazon, they have shifts 24/7. So, you know, you have people leaving, but then you have people come in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of consistent.
The only study I did find cleaning out my office was a 1972 management study that I want to give the historical museum. But that was kind of unique. I don't know if that's the last
Yes,
time the
that's-
study was done as far as the department goes, but 1972, I was like, wow. Anyway. So if there's any specific questions, I mean, my expense side of the budget, I think, went down. And the salary side is basically, you know, on contractual issues. Some of the issues on the expense side, I'm taking on more and more building maintenance as we go along, that Dennis used to always take care of, and now it's starting to pick up warranties and different things on equipment in the building now that it's starting to get up there a little now. It's times moving on, so. You know,
One thing I did see is there was a big reduction in your seminar budget. So went down 36%. Is that just because there's fewer seminars, or are you saying, hey, these are seminars that you know, I have no idea what the incoming chief may need, so I'm just curious as to why that dropped.
Most of it, less recruits, so the last several groups of recruits, so we've we've been spread it over 2 budgets.
Okay.
Like even this one, it's gonna, you know, most of our costs, we're going in, April. We have, 3 going in May. So they're starting in this fiscal year, but then.
Okay.
All in.
Great.
It's manageable. It's, I mean, I don't know, 23 years of budgets, I don't know, that I had any shortfalls, I think maybe one, and that was some transferred money at the time that basically was the discussion about that was already spent, but other than that, in 23 years, we've made these budgets work. We've done a good job trying to bring people in, as far as I know. Will be perfect? No, but I mean, overall, you know, I think we've done okay trying to, I know I've been told before that I've been too conservative. I hear that loud and clear. I remember that last year, but we have people that are paid to put out a mission statement. We work by the mission statement that's put out every year with our budgets. And if we didn't want more manpower and better equipment, then I don't think we belong in this chair. But we've always tried to play by the rules and go by the budget issue down statements that we put on. So I've been on all these years. It's shame on me. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, and we hear you loud and clear about your numbers, there's no question, we all hear it. And safety is important to all of us. You know, and you know, you see, I mean, I just look at the numbers of like fire, and I don't know if you're involved in this, but you know, remote assistance for another town. I mean, it's amazing how many on the north side of town, how many mutual aid we're getting from Medway for the north side of town, because fire and police are in the south end of town.
Right.
And something happens in the north end, there's no way you can cover both sections of the town. We're getting a ton of, I'm not a ton, that's an exaggeration. We have a number of mutual aid from Medway or Franklin servicing the north end of town. And that's something we have to think about long term.
You can get your manpower, stats back, you know, numbers back to where they were. We've had times where we've taken this town, which is a long skinny town. Say you have a south sector from the middle school that way, I mean, the north sector and the south sector. We've been able to carve out something like, say, from High Street to North Street and make a center sector. So that way there's a patrol car there in the north, one in the center, and then one in the south. And if you have the proper numbers, you can have a couple guys that are the backups and running shifts. So ideally, that would be the way to go, because it cuts down on your response time. Guys get tied up on calls in the north, and the guy from the south is coming all the way up. Sometimes seconds are really crucial to get the calls, you know, life-saving measures and stuff. So
I just think across departments and, you know, I mean, just when they're at capacity and they have that high third floor and you've got a medical response or something, now you're going in there, you're getting on an elevator, you're going to the top, it's just, and then that takes time, a lot of time. And then we have something out in the town that is critical and we can't get there because we don't have staff. It's just, you know, when you think about the infrastructure in the town, what we're building, that's great, it's in the center of town, but if you're always down south or always up north, with that center, it's not being covered.
yeah, there's impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Takes a lot of drain.
Well, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No, we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, Jesse. Jesse, because you're getting the Taj Mahal, you gotta get a little, you know, Chief got his Taj Mahal a few years ago. This right here is already outdated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, Jesse, you got 11 minutes. Perfect. Is there somebody out there?
Bill O'Connell was here, was he?
Yeah, Bill was just here.
Yeah.
I didn't.
They got in.
No, but I saw some. That's
Hillary. Meeting. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for meeting with me today. Going through the budget in the middle of the year. We have a number.
Yeah.
Do an intro first, right?
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
15.
Time, we'll start with 15.
Please, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Actually, that was one of my first points here. There, we got a number of different departments to cover with a lot of different line items. So I'm going to try to highlight some of the biggest changes. And if there's additional questions, obviously feel free to ask them there. But if we could start with 15, DPW highway. Just wanted to touch upon this. All salaries in each of the DPW budgets have been submitted to reflect both BPAA and AFSCME clerical, cost of living adjustments. The AFSCME field crew salaries were last changed in July of 21, and we have not yet come to an agreement beyond 21. So the changes there are only reflected upon clerical and BPAA.
Why is that? Are we,
We're still at an impasse with the one remaining budget that has not been settled. It's in the PPO.
are we into?
It's also the custodians.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Custodians.
Is that in mediation?
It likely will be, but not yet,
Okay.
which will help actually bring somebody in.
Yep, break the stalemate.
Yep.
So as far as staffing, this budget's middle reflects 3 DPW workers' salaries. With that being said, 2 of these positions would be additional positions from what we currently have. So 2 additional DPW field worker positions funded under this budget. The background on this, just to give you an understanding of what the DPW does, the different areas that we touch upon. We currently have 20 employees who are fully staffed. Again, I stress fully staffed with vacation time, sickness trainings, et cetera. It's very few and far between that we are fully staffed. But when we are, this is split up between our mechanics. We have 3 mechanics within the DPW that take care of vehicle fleet repairs, maintenance, things of that nature. We have 4 facility operators with an additional trainee at all times in our facilities. So that equates to 5 facilities operators that actually 2 of which are there 365 days per year. They take care of our 2 water treatment plants. We have a total of 9 well sites, 3 standpipes, 10 sewer stations, bacteria sampling, 20 distribution sample sites, as well as 20 well tap sites, both bi-weekly and quarterly samples that take place there, and our generators throughout town. We typically have 2 on our service crew. They take care of appointments, dig saves, miscellaneous repairs, trash and recycle requests, backflow meters for contractors, field inspections, which include pressure testing, sewer inspections, service line replacement, etc. Best case scenario, in the summer, we have 3 on sweeping. We have 2 sweepers, but we have 3 on sweeping because we have an additional person with the dump truck to take care of those sweepings to speed up the process. 2 on backflow device testing. We have approximately 600 backflows throughout town that must be tested each year, so it's beneficial to have 2 employees on that at all times, as well as potholes. Typically 2 personnel on potholes at all times, and people 2 on brush cutting when both machines are in service. In addition to this, we have miscellaneous planned activities, such as paving crew, which we like to have 5 on for the roller, a driver, the hand crew, the compactor. We have a valve exercising program. Ideally, we would get through the entire town exercising all of the water gate valves as part of a DEP recommendation. Flushing program, ideally, the valve exercising crew would go ahead of the flushing program to make sure these gate valves work. We can isolate them. We can properly unidirectional flush our system. Obviously, dirty water is a strong concern in town here, so we want to make sure we get ahead of that and properly flush our mainline valves. We have water service leaks, the ones that aren't as severe. We like to plan these out to make sure we have adequate people to address them and take care of them in a proper fashion, safe fashion. Miscellaneous street signs and replacement activities that come up. Anything goes down, we want to make sure we get the signs replaced, repaired as quickly as possible. We have a total of 10 sewer stations, which do experience issues from time to time. So when possible, we like to plan activities, maintenance, things of that nature to make sure we stay ahead of it. Meter reading, we do have a crew that goes out and obtains meter readings on all our water meters throughout town. Our vac truck and jetting services, we do go out and we try to maintain our catch basins and infrastructure throughout town with our back truck, and or catch basin plant truck. Hydrant repairs and replacement. Typically, it's a crew of 2 if it's a repair, or a crew of 4 if we have to do a full replacement on said hydrant. Repair of driveway aprons. Our crew is getting quite good at repairing driveway aprons. You know, following paving projects, we'll go back in a lot of times and repair them in-house, which is fantastic. We're involved with cemetery, you know, digging graves, things of that nature. So staying ahead of that, typically that's, you know, we have notice on that so we can plan. Recycle and center, crushing, pushing back leaves. It takes up a couple of people to take care of that. And miscellaneous interdepartmental assistance. Recently, we were involved with the story walk, fire department, smaller vehicle repairs, things of that nature. Moving equipment for different departments, reconnecting the sidewalks, signboard programming, community garden, senior center, et cetera. So it, you run out of 20 employees very quickly with the planned activities, let alone the other activities that come up that requires. In addition to this, we have our unplanned activities, water service, breaks that are severe or mainline leaks. These sewer station clogs that I talked about, some of them come up quickly and they must be acted upon, you know, immediately. So these unplanned events kind of jump ahead of some of these scheduled activities. Emergency failing catch basin repairs, tree removal. We have a severe storm, trees come down, and obviously have to jump on that right away. Beaver dam maintenance rather. Severe potholes that are having issues with cars, and obviously snowing and winter operations. What we anticipate with the addition of these 2 new employees, we would increase our paving as opposed to simply patching potholes. So where we have these reoccurring potholes that you know, are really a thorn in the side, and they chew up our you know, our workforce, we would like to go in and properly fix them. So a lot of it's reactive, take care of the pothole at that time to stay ahead of it, but unfortunately it comes up soon after. We'd like to better address the required valve exercising program. We should get through our entire system each year. It is a DEP recommendation. We're good at it, we could be better. Same with our unidirectional flushing. We did a good portion of the town 2 years ago. Last year, not so much. We'd like to get back on track, making sure that the water that we're supplying is clean, clear, residents are happy, they're getting a good service, you know, that they're paying for. Required catch basin inspections and cleanings. Part of this, we'd be able to allocate employees to go out to actually inspect these basins properly and clean them as necessary. And additional backflow device testing. So again, we have 2 employees that are typically assigned to backflow testing. Having additional employees to help us get through that a bit more efficiently. Onto the road repairs. We have added funds to line item 53,400, contracted construction, road maintenance, to continue with the much needed road repairs. We plan to combine this with the anticipated Chapter 90 funding. The TIP project is anticipated to start up again in the spring. We anticipate the completion of the town center project by the end of June. This will go much quicker now that the poles have been relocated, so that the contractor is certainly looking to jump on that ASAP. And as previously discussed, we're currently designing office space for 215 Depot Street. Currently, 215 Depot Street is being used to store DPW vehicles and various equipment. Blackstone Street, quite frankly, wasn't large enough to put everything inside. We have some vehicles that were previously parked outside. Obviously, this is not ideal. Coincidentally, we actually we're part of a theft. One of the catalytic converters was actually robbed off of one of our vehicles. It was parked outside. Yeah. Somebody actually cut it off, and we found out. We started it up, and it was extremely loud. And at some point, somebody had cut a catalytic converter off. So it's.
We don't have cameras at the building?
We do not yet. We hope to.
The current one.
We hope to someday, but that's.
These theft of Kelly converters are really good. You probably would never be able to identify them.
Yeah, fortunately, it was one of our oldest, most likely to be retired vehicles, so,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So we were fortunate that it was,
Right, isn't that obnoxious, right next door to the.
Right next to the fire and police, they.
No, this was good.
Oh, I-
I'm sorry.
so just, get everything inside, we're on top of that and, now, and, want to continue on that path, just wasn't good. Fortunately, it was one of, like Dennis said, one of the oldest vehicles in the fleet, so we certainly want to make sure, that doesn't happen to the new ones.
You're not a smart thief, if you will.
Yeah.
Why would you pick the oldest truck? I guess.
Because, their truck, didn't pass inspection
Yeah,
and they needed a catalytic converter and.
Yeah.
Anyone was gonna do.
Right. And some of these vehicles should not be parked outside. The diesels, for example, they're difficult to start in the winter months if they're parked outside, so you should plug them in, that sort of thing. While some of them cannot be parked outside. And previously we were renting space to store our back truck, our two sweepers, so having the extra space is definitely much needed and appreciated. In addition to that, we have water tanks in some of the trucks and various water testing equipment and gauges. Anticipation, 215 Depot Street eventually will become the DPW main headquarters, once the office space is completed. So we're certainly looking forward to that. Blackstone Street, will remain in use. The mechanics, will mainly use this facility for repairs. It does have some beneficial use as far as it's got a drive-in and a drive-in/out configuration, disabled vehicles that can get them through there much easier. And also it's connected to town sewer, so the washing, the MS4 permit, you can wash vehicles inside and have it go to the sanitary sewer system as opposed to drainage. It'll remain as extra space for vehicle storage and salting operations because of the salt shed. The extra space will remain operating out of there. And potentially someday the Parks Department will be where it's currently housed down at Redwood Road. The Bellingham DPW highway budget request for FY24 reflects some of the notable increases and administrative personnel. The reason behind this was to attract a highly qualified assistant director and clerical bargaining unit agreements. So they had step increases and also cost of living adjustments on that. Again, this reflects 2 new positions for the DPW.
Positions that have been previously funded and have been left unfunded for some time.
Electricity, this reflects both Blackstone Street and Depot Street. The increase is based on the rate that we pay compared to our consumption. Office equipment, maintenance costs and copying. This reflects some new fleet management system and near map GIS mapping programs to improve upon our asset management. Equipment costs and contracts. This incorporates our Sursage or Southeast Regional Service Group Consortium membership and Beaver Solutions maintenance fees. Seminars and trainings, new federal CDL requirements, mandates, trainings before employees can go for their license. So this is kind of a moving target. It's relatively expensive. It will change year to year based on how many employees we hire and if they come aboard with a CDL already, as opposed to having to go for training. Currently, training is anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000, depending on where you go. So we anticipate those prices really kind of volatile. Miscellaneous services for the police duty. This is a reflection on the increase in funding for contracted highway construction. So as we increase the funding for that, we also must incorporate the funding for the police details and things of that nature. So that's kind of what I had for the highlights on the highway side of things. If anybody had any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer, or try to answer them for them.
No, great job.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for your first, that's awesome.
The next one will be a little shorter as far as the cemetery.
I do have a question. Sure. Cemetery, so you said that we dig holes for cemetery. Do we charge the funeral home or the new resident, in the cemetery for digging the hole? You can dig holes for the
Yes, yeah,
burials, right?
yeah, correct.
Does the town charge for that service?
There are fees associated with,
Grave opening.
Grave opening, yeah, I thought so, but I was just wasn't sure how that's taken care of.
absolutely, yeah.
That's good.
And tab 10, I believe is cemetery. 10, yeah. And cemetery is level funded for FY 24. There were no questions on that. I had tab 20 next, gas for the vehicles. We can all imagine the gas increases due to the pricing for fuel itself. We base this on the average consumption times an average rate, gasoline at $3.80 per gallon and diesel at $4.20. So it's an estimate based on the average consumption multiplied by the projected rate year-to-date average.
Those numbers come up, because I get gas in my car and I pay $3.20. So is it from a state database that's coming up with those numbers?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. You gotta remember that these numbers were put together back in November, when prices were much higher. And so it was a conversation with the DPW director, taking a look at our fuel usage. Knowing that our gallons can fluctuate, it was based on an estimate at the time. And what we'll do is we will recheck that as we go in, because so we know we're establishing our budget for July 1, but our final budget doesn't get set until November. So we'll do another recheck on the prices and see if we have any capacity here, excess capacity in the budget in November.
Next up, I have tab 38 for parks and recs. Any of the changes that you'll notice here, increases and increases, this budget reflects requests modified to properly align the funding to reflect actual department activities. So for the most part, this is very close to what last year's request was, although the line items may have changed significantly. It was to better align what we're spending our funding on.
Yeah, this reflects basically status quo. One of the things that we've been working on, and I know Michael knows and Jesse knows and the superintendent does, we're looking at reorganizing how we manage the Blackstone Street complex, the school grounds, as well as our own facilities on Blackstone Street. So what we're going to be looking at doing, and obviously it requires a little work with the school department, and we haven't had in-depth conversations other than we all know we want to do it. The school superintendent is to essentially allocate the funding here. We maintain all those properties into the school budget, let the school handle it. And then in the winter, they would have additional staff, obviously, handle all that. In winter, they'd be able to bring those custodians in-house. We took on all of that, I'm going to say 2014. And it's worked well, but I think having the staff at the school department, specifically for the Blackstone Street field complex, where we've got the turf field, where we've got all those different fields that are used for different sports and have different requirements, as far as maintenance, makes a lot of sense. So that's the direction we want to go. And as part of that, the superintendent has indicated, and one of the things we talked about was those individuals would take care of all the public facilities on Blackstone Street. So they cut the grass and maintain the areas at the library, the senior center, and there's not a whole lot there, obviously. There's not a whole lot of grass to maintain, but it will certainly be a help. So that's it. So this represents status quo. There's likely going to be some changes there before it's actually finalized, but that would become effective July 1st. So again, something that we're working cooperatively with the school department on.
Next up, I had, tab number 48, sewer. And this category is actually very close to being level funded with a slight decrease for FY 24's request. Some of the notable increases throughout the line items include equipment maintenance costs and contracts. This reflects the sewer portion of Code Red, our call system, door swipe fob access, our near map GIS mapping program, the sewer portion of that contract. Again, gas and oil is reflected in here, and the CR PCD O&M, that's Charles River Pollution Control District. The fees here are based on capacity owned as opposed to flows. So it's our working fees associated with that. We own 0.377 million gallons per day of this capacity. It's 6.6% of the Charles River Pollution Control District plant's capacity. And on the other side of that, we also have sewer that flows into Woonsocket. The Woonsocket wastewater treatment plant, we own 0.8 million gallons per day of, or 5% of their plant's capacity as well. While this is expensive, it's still significantly less than building and maintaining our own sewer treatment plant down here. So the prices are really reflected upon what they provide us with our portion. So these figures are given to us directly from Charles River District and Woonsocket. Next up, I have tabs 63 board and
63 is water.
oh, I'm sorry, yep, 50. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, actually, well, 49. 49, 50, you got it all, Jesse. 49 still.
Oh, thank you. Yes, no, this is level fund.
Okay.
Mary, I've done. I brought this up maybe 2 or 3 years ago. If the lowest amount of money we've ever spent on So and Nice is 442,000, what again is the rationale for only keeping it at 260?
So in the years where you don't spend, obviously, you cannot cut this budget and then be able to deficit spend in a future year. That's a legal requirement. So we want to keep it at a level where we know we're not overfunding it and wanting to cut it in the future year. If you notice in this particular budget request, I did attempt to increase it slightly and start to get to a higher funding level for snow and ice. But in order to balance the budget, we've decided to remove that increase and keep it level funded. And we've been successful at managing our free cash resource to cover any deficit that we've seen.
Maybe something that we can revisit in November to bring that back up.
Yeah. What it does is if we know that our typical lowest level is 400, I probably wouldn't recommend that we budget to 400. We go slightly below that. But it allows us to reduce our reliance on free cash to cover deficit when it's happened.
Why, or is there an opportunity where it's an allocation to put the DPW director's salary under snow and ice as well?
Why would we do that?
Well-
Well, so snow and ice is intended to cover the removal operations, not funding of salaries.
Funding the management of it?
Next up,
And just in case you're curious, we are not in a deficit position, which is why we have not asked you guys to
Right.
authorize
Oh, no,
deficit spending at
we're
this
already-
time. However,
We have them Tuesday.
mention at your next meeting.
We're like 200,000, aren't we? Well, no, that was prior to the past few nights.
Yeah, so as of last week, prior to the latest salting event, we still had 187,000 left in the budget.
Let's go to Florida.
Keep going.
Worst case scenario under that, if we were still below, we would just buy all the sand or salt in June.
We would, depending on prices. Depending on salt prices, yeah.
Which we did last year and it worked out well.
Exactly.
This year, we don't know that we would want to do that because typically following a mild year, especially with fuel prices coming down, the bid comes in considerably less than the year before because they have a surplus. So it may be wise to hold off until we see what that new bid is, but that's something we can discuss in June.
Yep, I actually have a reminder on the calendar to.
But is that a case where if you had to replace plow blades and everything, else, you start buying all that up?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, stormwater?
Oh, did we want to go to, oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We're just going in deeper, sorry. Jessica.
Yeah, no. And stormwater, we actually have a decrease for FY 24. A lot of this is reflected upon, we have previously contracted out, having a number of our basins cleaned, and now being caught up on our standings with our basin cleaning. So there's less maintenance moving forward on this. Part of this increase is for a lease agreement for 2 DPW sweepers. One of the last line items here. The intent behind this is to trade in our current inventory and re-up our street sweepers with meetings every 5 years or so to stay on top of maintenance and things of that nature. They historically depreciate or decline in usability in a very short period of time. So by leasing them, we hope to stay on top of the usable life, but also trade it in before the value goes down.
This budget is entirely funded with that stormwater fee that was adopted.
Stuff I had tree warden, I have 60. Budget is level funded and we're using, in addition to that, using funding from town meeting.
See, there's a lot of tree removal, a lot of things happening in the town. And then now we had a lot of tree removal, now we're going into all the stump grinding.
Correct.
You see around town, a number of stumps everywhere with the fluorescent X on them. Yeah. I've had a couple of folks call me, one in High Street, one in Maple. Why is that there? They remove the trees, now it's time to take the stump, so that'll start. I mean, the weather's decent now, I guess they could start, it's a matter of getting the crews aligned.
Yep.
Oh, you have to put it up.
We have to put it up.
I thought that was already, no.
No, so we're hopeful that we get good response on this. It's something that's gonna be new to us. So if we get the interest, but also the prices come in favorable, we're looking forward to having that as soon as possible. But
I talked about that, there's a number of stump grinders, like the gentleman at the refill.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
yeah,
for
if
some
If it's a
reason,
one-man operation, they can avoid prevailing wages. We may want to aggressively share that as opposed to posting it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a few of them around town, that's just all they do.
Yes. Yeah. Certainly looking forward to removing those unsightly stuff.
Yeah.
Next up, I have number 63, water. And a little bit background on water. We recently received results from a pilot study on our best options for treatments of the water at our Hartford Ave filtration plant for PFAS, or polyfluorinated substances. In addition, we are just embarking on the effort to construct a new well that will be desperately needed in the future to help us meet the demand the current building will create. The Hartford Ave PFAS treatment plant has a price tag of around $22 million at this time. The new well estimate is anticipated at $4 million.
That's all? Okay. And that's High Street, right, for the new well behind the fields, yeah.
Well, both, yes, it's off of High Street. Oh, I'm sorry,
What was that number again?
it's 4 million? 4 million, I'm sorry, that was well,
New well,
10, correct, yes.
So it's
Yeah.
really two different things.
Two different
That we're talking about, well, 12, of course, we are replacing the existing well, but we've got a brand new well that we basically just doing, permitting, for at this point in time,
Correct, yes,
which has the price tag, potential price tag of 4 million.
4 million, absolutely. Thank you. For all of these major expenses, we will be seeking funding from the state in Washington. We are also part of a class action lawsuit that could yield some funds for the PFAS, from the PFAS manufacturers. The amount of these sources is currently unknown at this moment, but there is no doubt that some of these costs will be absorbed by the ratepayers, the factory, or the ratepayers.
We have a meeting, with Representative, Auchincloss, I think it's the 24th of March, in March, specifically to talk about earmarks for the PFAS initiative that we have. The engineering firm that we're working with on this project has a specialist that deals with federal funding. Has been extremely helpful. It's a service they provide as part of the engineering and coordinating the meeting and hitting on all the hot spots that are attractive for legislative earmarking at the federal level. Hopefully we'll be successful. We have seen some communities in the area being successful with this.
Water, sewer, and stormwater rates will be reviewed to keep all three as enterprise funds as they are intended to be. Fees and charges covering all costs. So some notable increases to the water funding. Electricity reflects all water pump stations, plants, and standpipes. Increased price from the supplier reflects these additional requirements. Equipment maintenance and costs / contracts. This includes our code red increase, the dialing system that I'm sure everybody here has heard. People GIS increase, our GIS system. It includes an addition to our fire extinguisher annual inspection at these facilities. Our Brightly software is our work order system for our facilities, and our dual fob entry system. So each one of these experienced a bit of an increase for this year. Water cross connection services. The increase on this is due to our status and our need to accelerate we're currently behind on the requirement to survey all the facilities, all the businesses throughout town. So this increase would reflect the ability to have an outside consultant help speed up the process and cover all of these locations. We saw an increase to legal services. These are fees associated with legal counsel. Dues and memberships. This happens to be a renewal year for water licenses. So every other year, water licenses are renewed. So you'll see this decrease the next time around. We are at a treatment 2 and a distribution 3 system, which ties into the next portion of seminars and trainings. As the level of our system increases or has increased, additional training is required for that. So if you're a higher level, you need additional training. So all of our employees are required to take this training, which is reflected on the seminars and training for their TCEHs or CEUs. So again, this will be anticipated to be lower next year. It's typically every other year. We'll see a difference on that. Gas and oil increases. Again, that's the cost per gallon and see average use. And our chemicals, we saw an increase on our chemicals. This is reflected upon the bid results. Again, we are in Sursage, the Southeast Regional Service Group. The pricing that we use is multiplied by the standard quantity that we would use at our treatment plants. We have 4 different chemicals that we use large quantities of potassium permanganate, an oxidizer for the iron and manganese in the water, aluminum sulfate, combines with the organic so we can properly filter them out. We have sodium hydroxide, which adjusts the pH. And we also have sodium hypochlorite, which is a disinfectant. So we use large quantities of these chemicals, and the amount that you see adjusted here is based off of what they're charging at that time. And lastly, we have the meter recycling program. So the program here is to continue replacing approximately 340 meters per year. The cost increase on this is strictly due to the price of the meter itself. So we anticipate 340 meters per year be replaced to stay on top of the older, failing, inaccurate meters. We'd like to stay on top of those and make sure what we're charging is appropriate, it's accurate. So to stay ahead of that, we anticipate about 340 per year.
Anything?
You jumped right in, didn't you, Jesse?
Can I just
Have you worked on your code red voice though? I need to know. You're about to get busy, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I was joking with Don, I said, for the unfavorable ones, we saved your voice.
Retired DPW.
Can I just touch upon one thing that Jesse had mentioned, and I just want to let the board be aware. We are currently seeking vendors and price quotations to do a water sewer rate study. So our rates have not been adjusted since 2014. Given a lot of the projects and activities that Jesse's talked about and that you guys are aware of, we're going to need to take a serious look at our water and sewer and our trash rates to make sure that we are pricing those properly to cover the costs of those operations. And we do anticipate that there will be some increases. We're going to be working with a consultant to factor in our future capital needs, the new wells, the PFAS treatment plant, and determine how much of it needs to be funded locally versus whether we get any federal or state earmarks and other programs that might be available to offset some of those big ticket items. But I want to let you know that that rate study is going to happen over the summer, and it will be brought before you guys in the early fall for adopting a new set of rates so that they're in place before we set our tax rate in the fall. Okay, so that's coming.
The two questions relative to DPW. If the breakdown is 30% highway, 10% sewer, 40 water, and 20 stormwater, if 70% of costs are allocated to things we charge our users for, if you have staffing needs, it seems that we're only taking a 30% hit of that.
Right, in the highway budget.
Right. So to that extent, are our staffing levels appropriate, knowing that most of those roles can be reallocated, and are those allocations, where do they come from? Was there a study that says, why is it 40, 30, 20, and 10? Was it just?
It was something that Don worked on. It was his analysis. I can tell you that as budgets got tighter, we squeezed the enterprises harder. You'll see that the water enterprise funds a good part of the department.
Right. No, and I agree, but I think from a staffing standpoint, particularly, I guess the timing would be right to say that if the DPW is short one or two or more laborers, workers, if we're doing a rate analysis, this would be the right time to determine if our staffing levels.
Absolutely,
are there.
absolutely.
So as long as that's inclusive of
Part of
that.
the process will be to identify the staff, and we have to identify the costs, right? The costs of each of these operations. And the biggest cost is labor. So we need to figure out who we have based on what you heard Jesse describe what they do. Those costs will be factored into each one of those enterprise operations. And it will also factor in our projected target surplus revenue annually.
So you and I had a discussion about the pension reserves and everything. So when we don't allocate things like that to these.
Yes, we do.
Do we?
Yeah. So if you look at the back in your books,
Yeah.
in each of the enterprise operations, the last page in there is my calculation for indirect costs. So we, from the town side, do charge each of the enterprise funds, water, sewer, and stormwater, for a share of the cost of the services we provide. Otherwise, they would have to hire an accountant, an HR director, et cetera, on their own.
A couple of questions for Jesse regarding the water. So with the anticipated residential growth in this town and with first apartments going live, the well that we're going to be adding, the new well, is that going to be sufficient for the increased demand that we're potentially going to see over the next 5 to 10 years in this town? And we can, as part of the study, I don't know if they do that part, but we really need to look at what the demand is going to be on the town based on that future population increase.
Yes. So the anticipated yield on this new well
Yeah.
is significant. It is anticipated to yield a very large amount of water, upwards of 400 gallons per minute, I believe, the most recent results were on this. So to answer the question, I mean, that's a great question. So Bellingham has a large number of wells at this time. We do maintain quite well when we're fully operational, but this well, with the amount of yield that we're expecting from it, would also put us in a good position where if we were to lose one of these other sources, we would still be able to operate.
So staffing wise, as you project, we're going to have enough staff to manage all of those wells, or will we be looking to add additional staff to maintain the additional well?
So these,
Your staffing projections.
right. So these additional positions that we're hoping for would certainly help that burden.
Help it, but would it make it right?
I say, yeah.
Yes.
I would say yes.
Okay. All right. And are we still selling water to other towns, other towns?
Great question. So we have the ability to, although we have not done that in years now.
Because I'm thinking if the demand is that high, that may be another way for us to offset if these other towns are in need of water, we could be selling water to them. Correct? Or, no, am I wrong? Am I thinking correctly?
Yeah, that's one that we
Yeah.
have brought forward once or twice and.
Well, I'm bringing it up now.
And the issue is,
Dangerous?
we have attempted that with Mendon specifically once or
With
twice.
I remember that years ago.
Yeah, and I think right now, I mean, when we have failures of a well, it's difficult, particularly in the summertime, to maintain what we have. So I think
Imagine how tricky
unless,
it is.
yeah, unless we have mutual aid agreements. So if we have an issue, we have interconnection, so we could get water from Milford and vice versa. We can help other communities, same with Franklin. At one time we were, but I think sale of water is a tough one.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
and again, it would cause a lot of probably, if we were selling our water to other towns and we're telling people in this town, hey, we're.
You gotta have
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They'd be going nuts, and I get it, it's probably not an easy thing.
We've taken it to town meeting twice and then come out with our tail between our legs.
Yeah, all right, well, but when I heard, a lot of capacity, okay.
Yeah,
That's good,
it's
that's
good.
great.
And really what it is, and Jesse said it, what it gives us redundancy. So if we do have a well go down, like well number 12, it's the biggest producer in town. That thing is pumping maybe a third of what it did when it first went in the mid 1990s. It's being replaced. It's gonna come back almost to where it was when it first went in. So that's helpful, but when it was down, or we were doing testing out there this summer, it created a serious situation for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then that well feeds the north and south, right? Like,
So well 12, that would be for the, it goes to the north plant, but our system, there's no separation. It's one system. So essentially it goes that way to be treated, but the system as a whole gets water from both north and south. So when we,
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Good, finish.
oh, I was just gonna say, so that's kind of like, so we have an issue, obviously, as everybody's aware of with PHMs. It's really only at our north plant, but because it's one distribution system that we have, the notice has to go out to all residents.
I have a question involving the Depot Street garage. We keep billions of dollars of trucks there now. And we have no alarm system, no camera system. I think we would, our best interest to price out an alarm system for those buildings. And when it will sound off if somebody breaks into one of those buildings, Because once somebody gets in a building, there's no alarm system, they can remit hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage without us even being aware of it.
They was still a Calico murder.
Just see if we explored that, the alarm system, not so much the surveillance cameras, but the alarm system for that.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, so it's certainly something that we're looking into, and we do plan to move on that sooner than later.
I would like to move on it sooner than later, because
Yeah.
we've already had one theft, so the test is there.
Yep.
By who's ever doing that stuff.
Mhm.
Once they get inside that building, you're not gonna see them drop somebody off, they go in with power saw.
Yep.
And every vehicle you get in, those buildings will be stripped of their catalytic converters in a matter of 10-15 minutes per converter. You know, and that's the easy part of it.
We're not, is this a publicly broadcasted meeting? Because we don't be giving them a
No,
roadmap.
It's just those guys that are watching.
Just watch for girls.
We'll table that for our
Time.
Thank you, Joe.
It's a public meeting, coming to the board of selectmen, it would be televised.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a place to bring it up.
Just throw this out there, maybe I've been probably one of the worst attendees of the roads committee meeting, but are we at the point where we need to do a town vote to raise an additional $5 million to fund roads? Because Don would come here and say, yeah, you gave me 5 million, but I can only spend $1 million a year over and above what we already are because of capacity in the town.
I think we've already allocated what we're gonna spend for this year.
No, I agree, but I mean, it's,
Any bond money left, do we, after this year?
No.
No, so I mean, that's something we should probably look at for the November meeting. Because
yeah. I mean, I'm just to put that on for this
yeah.
board because it seems to me that a number is needed. Mary?
So,
God's given us that number a number of times now.
well, yeah, whatever the number is, it'll never be enough, right?
it's more than 5 million won't cover it.
No. So the budget that you have in front of you is right now, given the revenue projections, is a very tight budget. So what you're proposing is to go to town meeting to ask for authorization for additional funding for debt service. There is no capacity in the budget right now to increase our debt service budget for roads or for any other project. We're at a balanced budget right now. In November, should things change, should our revenue projections change, then yeah, potentially we could talk about that. But at this point, I need to see what all the other capital requests are that are going to be coming in from all of the departments. We just asked all the departments to submit those by mid-March so that we can get our arms around our capital program. I expect that roads will be part of that discussion, but we need to look at what the other priorities are as well.
For November,
For November and for the future, beyond
Okay.
November. When departments submit their capital request, they should be submitting it for a 5-year program.
Yep.
So that we can see future needs. Is there a lot of additional capacity in our budget to issue debt to take on all of these projects? So
Do we have any other options?
The fundings,
for
federal fundings or.
So,
road improvements,
yes,
no, we have chapter 90 funding, we have the appropriation that's in the budget, and we have the spend down of the existing bond authorization. That's what we have to work with.
We do have, I don't know, $1 million or $1.5 million worth of projects planned for this construction season.
We do.
Yeah, so with funding for it, so this year's construction season's, funded. Of course, all the projects that we've awarded in the past have been funded.
it's just, we all know, driving up and down,
Yep.
just 126. for
One of the
example,
things that we're
is
looking at is, and one of the projects that we funded is North Main Street just recently. So from the other side of the bridge beyond Dairy Queen up to, the four-way stop. And of course, the town center is going to be done and 126 from Easy Street down to the town center will be completed. So there'll be a nice stretch of road that'll be in good shape. 126 for the most part will be in reasonable shape because south of the tip project, it doesn't look too bad. And we're actually going to be going back to Boston on the next tip project beginning in March. And that tip project is Hartford Avenue from
I believe it was from the end of the construction towards,
Nope, Hartford Avenue, where we're talking about, the tip project for.
Is that from Depot Street?
Going towards Medway. Towards Medway.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
So that's from, was that from the Maple Street intersection all the way to the Midway Town line? Is that where that is?
I'd have to double check
I
where the
believe
start of
that's
that
where
was.
that tip
Yeah.
project is. Obviously, it's a 3-4 year project, but the design work has begun on that.
Because we have culverts and stuff too that have to be
Yeah.
replaced on
Yeah.
that stretch, yeah.
Is that Arrowhead Road? project? Is that what you
Nope.
said?
No,
That's you're going the other way. We got them everywhere.
Quite a few of them, yeah.
And I think 126 right now stinks because they just covered it to cover it because it's gonna get dug up. There's no point. You just have to kind of deal with it right now,
Sounds like
but
it's time for another, maybe a Kelly and Don TV show to talk about what we're doing with our.
We've never had.
I know.
I will.
yeah, we did them last year.
Do it.
Development recap.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. We'd love to do that. Just update, planning board come in. Yep. You know, DPW and just have a conversation, sort of a roundtable discussion. All right.
Excellent.
Anything else? Welcome. I think you already know you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for appointing me before.
Yeah, one of the things that we wanted to do, Mary's wanted to touch on, we got the numbers in yesterday on the governor's budget as far as state aid goes, so I know Mary's got a slide on that, some information with regard to that. You said 11, but I was thinking 12 all along.
What, you were? Well, we didn't go. Well, we took a little longer break, but, well, it's good. I think, yeah, it's good. Oh, yeah, I always try to shoot aim high.
Yeah, what's scheduled for the school committee?
March 6th, yeah.
Going be coming before the.
Thanks,
Thank
Jesse.
you. Thanks. Jim.
Have a good
That's on a Saturday, right?
No, that's
No,
on
Monday.
Monday, okay.
He zoomed in, so.
The school department is done with their Saturday meetings. They've completed their Saturday schedule. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we got together a couple of weeks ago and we talked about where we stood in terms of our revenue projections to support our budget. This was one of the charts that I had showed you guys at that time. So I'm not going to go through this in detail again, but what I want to go over is one of the things that we do know is that the governor released her budget on Thursday of last week. And the state aid numbers that came out, if you took a look at them, they were very favorable in terms of the impact here in Bellingham. When I say favorable, what that means is that the state aid receipts were up $976,000. And the charges were also up $168,000 for a net increase of state aid $808,000. If that were to come through to fruition, that would be phenomenal. And I think we would be, we'd have our own little dance party here. However, the likelihood of these funding programs that the governor has issued, the likelihood of them staying at those levels is not something that I am very confident about. You have to remember that this is a new governor. It's a new administration, and she's got an awful lot of aggressive programs that benefit municipalities. And as you can see, the impact to Bellingham would be significant. The proposal that the governor's administration has put forward includes, for the first time, fully funding a lot of programs that have been in the state budget that have never been fully funded before. And one of the telltale items with the state aid numbers that came out the other day is that the kickoff to state aid numbers and the building of the state budget is the revenue consensus hearing that the House and the Senate have. They typically have it in December of every year. This year they had it in January. And that's when the House and the Senate chairs get together with a lot of economists, the state treasurer, state auditor, and they come up with a revenue consensus number, a percentage by which they think that the state revenues are going to grow, and therefore that will trickle down to the municipalities. That revenue consensus number came out at 1.6% increase over last year. And what the governor did with her proposal is she said, okay, I understand that you guys all agreed to 1.6%, but I'm putting forth a recommendation of 2%. And I think that that could potentially send a strong message back to the House and Senate, where the governor's already trumping their hard work that they've gone through for the consensus hearing. So it remains to be seen how well received and supported the governor's budget is going to be. And whether this 800,000 is going to actually be reality here in Bellingham. Like I said, don't have confidence that we're going to see that full impact. So what I'm showing you here is the chart that we looked at before, and this first column on the left-hand side, that is the first colored column where the green at the top for revenues, blue at the bottom for expenditures. That's what's in your budget book. That was the summary sheet, and those were the revenue projections that we talked about before. What I did over to the right-hand side is I added a revised column for FY24, showing an increase to state aid of, instead of 10%, so that $800,000 represented a 10% increase in state aid. What I'm projecting right now is a 2.5% net increase to state aid. So those cells that I've highlighted in that orange color, that yellow-orange color, those are the numbers that would change. So the receipts at the top increased by 2%, and then the charges down below are the assessments that they have allocated to us at this time. If the state aid numbers start to pan out and we are all comfortable that a 2.5% increase is realistic, what that would do is that would provide us some additional capacity, spending capacity in our budget of 290,000, which is down in that lower right-hand corner. So that's what I'm hoping for right now. And if it comes in more favorable than that, that would be fantastic. So I just wanted to go over with you sort of the process with state aid. So we know the governor released her budget the other day. I sit on the MMA's Fiscal Policy Committee, and we have a meeting next Tuesday. And our agenda item is to talk about the governor's budget. So that's when I get together with about 20 other professionals from municipalities, town administrators, CFOs, and other folks, where we analyze and talk about these things and whether they are realistic or not, and get sort of a pulse from other communities on their sense of whether these are going to be real. So I will report back to you guys once I have that information from that fiscal policy meeting. Then what happens is the Senate and the House are going to have a budget hearing in mid-March. Then the House will take up the governor's budget and debate their budget bill in April. The Senate will do the same and come up with their recommendations in the month of May. And then the conference committee gets together in June. So typically right before town meeting is when we get a better sense, after the House and Senate have had their chance to provide their debate and their revised budgets. We'll know right before we walk into town meeting how close we are.
Can we get an update from our rep and our senator prior to that time to get a sense of where their organizations are leaning toward?
We can, it'd be premature now, but you're right.
Now,
I'm saying in April.
Yeah.
after the House debate, and Senate
Sure.
debate, you know,
Yeah.
right before, it'd be nice to have this committee give us an update.
And the nice thing is that after the House and the Senate have passed their versions, obviously there has to be the conference committee, but we'll know, we'll have an idea of what they're proposing for state aid.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if one's at 1% and one's at 2%, then we know it's not gonna be 10%.
That's right.
But if they're considerably higher, but I think it's gives us some optimism that there's some things we may be able to do. I know we have a school committee coming in on the 6th, and obviously they're aware of these numbers. It may give us an ability to take a look at some of the things that maybe they're having some difficulty with. But last year, what happened, if you recall, in November, we were able to adjust some budgets because we knew we had some excess capacity, and we were able, that's when we did the 2 positions in the fire department. We had a position in police, so we're able to do some things there. So certainly, if not in May and November, we'd be able to look at that as well, so.
Well, and with the governor's budget, the way it is, we actually take a bigger hit on charter schools. Our assessment is more, and they're giving us less of a reimbursement. We're with her budget, we're looking at $2.6 million. That's not reimbursed just from charter school.
Yeah.
So that was a little,
Yeah.
Charter schools are more costly, but, you know, those are our students going there.
yeah,
So we're getting money in to pay for it, but it's going right back out.
And it
to the
stinks
students.
because it's money that's being taken away from the students that are staying here. And
Because clearly, if all those students were here in Bellingham in our public school system, it would, and we were able to keep that money,
that money
it
would
would be a
stay.
win.
Yeah.
If charter school, if they don't have athletics and things, if they wanted to play sports here, they're Bellingham resident, why wouldn't we like charge them $1,000 or let them play the $1,000, $2,000 user fee, get some of that money back?
I don't
Not a
know.
lot about the M&A.
We're not, okay.
Well, and the
Thank you.
kids come back, the charter schools only get free.
Yeah.
So the kids either come back at that point, or if they go to ABC or they go to private school.
I thought about it, 12th grade now. Didn't Franklin charter go to
Still
12th?
only in
K
eighth
to
grade.
eight? Okay. Okay. Yeah, just trying to find a way to.
Yeah, no.
Don't know what all the laws are.
So there's there's a little optimism in the room,
Right.
which is fantastic. I don't think we've ever had, this much reliance on state aid to fill a gap like this. So there is some optimism with respect to that. And then, of course, our new growth numbers, you heard from Tim with all of the development. We're being fairly conservative on some of them because we've had some delays like the Loviser project and some others. So if those meetings are successful and those projects are coming to fruition, then we will have more positive new growth numbers as we head into the fall as well.
Assuming all that comes true, what is your recommendation to deal with school committee on March 6th?
You need to deal with. I think we're gonna hear their proposal.
So they want more money than than is originally been offered.
I don't know. I think we consider their proposal and, ultimately we see what, funds are available, and certainly the board, make that recommendation based on, what revenue is available.
Well, I thought it was pretty encouraging. I'm sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, do we anticipate they're still at that 1.4 million that that's kind of what their budget increase?
I don't think 1.1 and 1.2 when they were here last. When
I-
saw the number.
They're still working,
Still finishing
the
up.
superintendent and the school business manager are definitely working on some additional variations of their budget. And they will be presenting, to you guys on the 6th.
But I don't know if you all saw it then, but I thought it was pretty encouraging that we're really number one in what we contribute to the school department per pupil in district. That doesn't account for the money we're spending to send to charter schools. That's just in district and we're number one.
That's pretty
sure.
schools budget, book. I hadn't
that.
seen that. Mary had.
I saw
flagged
that.
Yeah, it shows, granted, there's all kinds of ways of interpreting the numbers, but the other thing is that showed 4 years of that data, and we're right there for all 4 years, so we've always known that, it's a matter of, how those funds are allocated, I know our school committee does the best job they can to try. and
If they're getting the
address
money,
needs.
if they're getting the money, there's still challenges.
Oh,
Then,
yeah.
why, maybe they're not making wise choices, maybe they're making, I don't know, I'm not challenging the school community, but if we're spending more money than other towns per student, and they're coming back to us and wanting another $1.4 million, why? If we're already spending a fair amount, what are we not providing our students? I don't know. I don't know what is missing.
One of the things that we have in Bellingham, and I know the superintendent's talked about it, is we have had a big issue with children coming into the district that don't have command of the English language. So
Yeah.
we are having to spend a lot of money in that regard. We're an attractive community from the perspective that property values are lower because of the tax burden is less. So we have had some challenges there, and I know that's one of the things that has been pointed out.
And I get that, not, it's just kind of off to the side, but my daughter is going to school for secondary education. And a big part of her class work right now is how to teach just basic science and math and English to non-English speaking students, even though, that's a big part. How do you communicate with children that don't speak English, but you need to teach them math, or you need to teach them English or
An
something?
incredible number of
unbelievable.
languages that we have in the district. I forget what the number is, but it's not like
you know, Spanish and two others.
Oh,
It's a large number of children that have various languages, and every time you have I would imagine you have to hire an aide that has some ability to speak that language when you have a family come into town. My daughter has a good friend who teaches in the Lawrence school system, which she did for a couple of years. And most of her students, none of them spoke English, and she didn't speak Spanish fluently, so she had to have an aide to help her.
Aren't we also very high in terms of the number of students requiring some form of special education needs? That's the big
We definitely
chunk
do,
of, so
but it
that's where
is.
that.
And the transportation,
Right,
there's a
exactly.
big number for transportation as well. I mean, I don't have children in the school system right now, so I really can't comment, and Kelly, you certainly do. I mean, I'd love to hear from you. I know that the school budget's very important to you. Where are we not spending that we should be spending? What services aren't children across the board not getting that you see they should be receiving?
I mean, I think, and I've said it before, I think it's those kids that fall into your sort of 60% of your school population who is right in the middle. You have an extremely high number of students who fall into the high needs category, and that's anyone, that encompasses anyone, English as a second language, academically needing support, IEPs, 504s, everything like that. Even kids who just qualify for free and reduced lunch, they're actually categorized as in the high needs population. You also have a pretty good conglomerate of students who are very high achieving. And we see that in the way that we have more honors classes, AP classes, things at the high school level, and those students tend to be self-starters. Where the disservice I think is happening is for the rest of the kids in the community that are just sort of, you know, your average student who could use maybe a little helping hand here or there, but there isn't enough time to see to those students. There's curriculum changes that are happening probably, in my opinion, maybe a little more frequently than they should be. So teachers are having to spend more time learning new curriculum in order to teach the students. That's taking away other professional development opportunities to those teachers. As far as I've never been, class size has never been an issue, right? My daughter's part of the largest class that they have. So her class, I mean, I think she had 1 year where her class was like 24 kids, but she's also one of those high achievers. So her class sizes are smaller now because she's in more advanced, classes. I also have a son who's on a 504 who's academically advanced, but he's having a lot of trouble because there's not appropriate supports to help students who are academically high achieving, but still need those social things.
I mean, you have to have those too. You need something just, you know, you need it, and it's
right.
There's a lot of kids need it. You need something, it's not just, you know, making excuses, you know, if you need it, if you not. I mean, the kids out there, they need that too. You know, it's, and I know I hear the special needs all the time, but you know, I'm a special needs department. I don't think it's just sucking a lot of money out of the whole district too, you know. I mean, I'm just talking because, you know, I've been into it, you know, it's the son who was in special needs program. You know, it's like, for instance, years ago when we started this journey, you know, it's with my oldest one. I mean, we didn't really have anything, you know, just we kind of built it along the way. And then, I mean, when you compare the rest of the towns, you know, we always talked about it, you know, so when we pay them, we are not. I mean, special needs teachers or ABA tech staff, so they don't get paid, you know. Yeah, they don't get paid compared to the rest of the towns. I mean, that's a fact too, you know, if you want to just, you know, add another
The
factor.
teachers that are supporting those students, yeah, they.
Yeah,
the lowest
And
paid.
most of them actually, they end up leaving and they go into different towns too, you know, if we just, you know, throw it out there.
There's a lot, and I
Yeah.
think that where special ed comes in, it's all unfunded. So you have to, you know, the state says that you have to pay for this, you have to pay for their transportation, you have to, so it's, I don't have the right
David,
word for it,
but
but
the transportation, you know, it's required transportation.
Yeah, if you can't meet the needs of that student.
I'm asking that because I know they're coming in here and, you know, we've had commentary about the school and, my personal experience is obviously is very different than others, so I can't just go based on what my experience has been with my 4 children through the school system. So, but if we're lacking something, and we really need, and there's a bunch of students, and we need to, be talking to Peter and to others to say, hey, and I think this is where you're going for, we don't have a say in their budget, it's their budget and they own it. But if we here as a community think that there's something missing they're not providing, then it is incumbent upon us to say something. It is, but it's incumbent upon us not to say it's a select board, but as a citizen, maybe at a school committee meeting. But I think at the same time, we have a right to ask, because at the end of the day, we own the budget. We're submitting the entire budget to the town, right? Am I right or wrong?
No, you are, but I also think too, it might, and this may just be too far out there, but
Yeah.
it may just need to be that there needs to be a broader look at everything to make sure that, and this would fall under the school committee, that all of the money within their department is allocated the right way. Like you have, maybe there doesn't need to be as many administrative type positions that would free up Cat. Maybe, it could just be that there's an entire the way that they, and it's not us, but that's just, again, I could be completely
But I
out
think-
of touch, but it's.
Yeah, I think more specifically to Don's point, they come in, present their budget, and we ask them where the real serious, what services are we failing to
Yeah,
provide?
what aren't we?
And, they say what those are, and if
We
there's an
make it-
ability through additional funding from the state, then maybe there's an opportunity to.
That's exactly
obviously
where I
allocate
was
additional
going.
funds. Yeah.
Thanks for the
Let's throw it out, and I
Yeah.
think you've mentioned it, whether
Yeah.
like transportation isn't part of their
It
budget,
is,
but
it is now.
It is now.
It is
First
now.
year, it's, as a matter of fact, part of what they have done is their last budget hearing, they had tremendous savings on the transportation side, and they were able to leverage that, utilize it in some of the things that they weren't able to handle on the school side. So this is the first year, really. It doesn't make sense to have it any other way. I mean,
you get more creative and maybe
more
you
efficiency.
assess your staffing.
And they benefit from it. They
Because-
should benefit from it. They find better ways to manage their transportation, and it allows them to have more money for education. Great.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, oh, great, it's an extra 200,000 that'll be certified for free cash or something. That, not to say that they haven't tried to be efficient in the past, but certainly that's additional benefit to them.
I am probably Kelly or Michael might have the answer, when you said what we don't have, what's the percentage the kids are going out of district? And when you say transportation, the kids are like going to BVT and stuff, or just like just the special needs, or just.
So
what's the
out of district,
transportation, goes on the, what's that cover?
out of district placement, can cover everything from a special needs student who needs to be placed out of district.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then we would need to provide the transportation. Kids, if you are school choicing, that's considered out of district.
Yeah.
We don't do transportation for kids that are
Okay.
voluntarily leaving.
Okay.
BBT, that's already in the budget. That's transportation part of the BBT
And that's
budget.
in district, because we own 13th of that.
Right, but
So-
for students who, some students have transportation written into their IEPs. And if it's written into the IEP, the town has to cover that.
I
You
would.
don't have to pay for it. So it's
We have a
all,
lot of, I'm just asking because, something I didn't know that part, that's why I'm.
Sure, they could
it'll be
continue
in
to
the
provide it.
school budget. It's in the,
School has that.
it's in the, did you get the email that Mary sent with the link for the
Yeah, I
school
don't think
budget?
I cut that, I didn't catch that part, that's why I'm
It's
asking.
the numbers are in there. So
Help us out, and I think Mary would have to clear up if my information's incorrect, but I was told that when we outsource special needs transportation, we get reimbursed at the state level at a higher level because we can invoice like Mark's transportation and this as a direct cost versus the vans that we purchased and the staff that we've hired, we are getting reimbursed at a lower number than anticipated.
So the state changed the rules last year.
Yeah.
To allow more flexibility in the circuit breaker reimbursement. So school districts, if you spend over a certain dollar value, and that number changes every year, and it's about $40,000, 44,000. If you spend over 44,000 for a single student, anything above that 44,000, you can charge off to circuit breaker, and the state reimburses you 75% of that overage. So we own for special needs students up to that threshold, and the threshold is based on a percentage that changes every year. So prior to the most recent change, they were not allowing school districts to charge for some of their special ed transportation to the circuit breaker. And therefore, it was advantageous for us to provide that transportation in-house because there was not an option for reimbursement, but now there is.
So I guess where the school committee has that decision is we have 4 or 5 drivers who are driving vans every day that they may not wish to utilize.
Yeah.
And as a result of not doing that, you have Mike Roach, someone has to coordinate the busing, but he has a dispatcher that is jumping in those vans, that it's another position because they can't get people to fill a drive for 2 hours in the morning and drive for 2 hours in the afternoon. So if we can't find people, it's better to outsource that, or at least that appears to be, particularly with the reimbursement rates being higher. So having them have those transportation decisions and not us, because if it falls on us, it's like we have no control. If it falls on them, it makes more sense for them to make those tough decisions.
That's why that 1.2 that we talked about budget increase with the savings, it's still 1.2, but they've been able to generate about $150,000-$200,000 out of the transportation budget to cover that. So although it doesn't show as like an increase,
Yeah.
effectively it is.
Yeah. And they may, depending on what comes after, in March and April, make some decisions. The department heads went to the school committee and had to make all of their presentations. And in advance of that, the staff, anyone whose position was to be cut was notified. And that was part of the library discussion. The middle school and high school library positions were notified, and doesn't mean the school committee will accept that. But that has all been put on the table for staff that may not.
Well, because they don't even have library in the student schedules anymore. They have STEAM, which in my personal opinion, it's much more advantageous for my 7th grader to be doing a whole term of STEAM than it is to have a period every day that he sits in the library and does a worksheet. Like that's just, so as a parent, I would be okay with that. But Mary also made a really good point, to loop back to you. If a district is spending $44,000 on a special needs student, where our average is 19,000 for, say, my daughter who gets no services, that's also where the extra money is being spent. So some of these students, the spending per those student is double what it is for others. So, and it's what we have to do.
It is, but remember that pool that you're spending the increased funding on, that pool is smaller than the pool of students that you're spending just regular per pupil expenditures.
Yes. Mayor, I have a question. Of our budget, how much is in that budget that's required as unfunded mandate? Do we have a number of, you talked about unfunded mandates by the state and federal government. Do we know how much of is in our budget as a result of unfunded mandate, things we have to do that we have to, generate revenue to pay for? Does it make a difference? Does it matter? I'm just curious.
So I can't quantify
Not
that.
now,
but-
not now, but.
But I can tell you, well, you may not be aware of this, but the state actually has a department, an agency called the Agency of Unfunded. It's part of the Treasurer's Office, I believe. And they actually have a chart, and I believe they cost it out. And it's the Unfunded Mandate Department. And they list out and manage all of the unfunded mandates. I'll send you
I'd
the
love
link.
to
and you
know,
can
I
take a look
would
at it.
really love to know what number we have in a breakdown, how it's allocated. Because that's something, bring back to our legislators and say, hey, something has to be done here.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue a lot of the things that we're subjected to
Are
are,
unfunded,
could
yeah.
potentially be unfunded mandates, like even a lot of the regulatory reporting that I'm required to do every year. If you chose not to staff a finance office, you wouldn't be getting those, you know, you wouldn't be
That's sometimes.
meeting those requirements.
Big doing business, right? But this isn't a business, but still.
But like providing transportation and providing, you know, a number of other things.
Well, the
yeah.
charter school reimbursement, all that kind of stuff. I just look at that.
I know the charter, you know what, the charter school is really tough because it's hitting Bellingham very hard. It doesn't hit other communities as hard, but to see $3 million walk out the door every year and not go to the local school district is very hard to palate. And you just spent a half an hour talking about the school department's budget. If we had that $3 million, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
And to me, I go back to why the charter schools, that whole program started, was for really the inner city, was to provide an alternative. And then it just started to spread, the sprawl started as an alternative education, and people jumped on the bandwagon, and it's just, to me, it's out of control.
It's not stopping.
People who make money.
Oh, well, it's a business.
And we should never have to fund the amount over and above what we're already paying.
I agree.
So if it's 25 to go to Franklin Charter, you have 15. The other
They pay
10
the-
should be
they
the
pay
same.
the bill.
Yeah, you basically, you move to Bellingham, you know, it's because you don't
Low
want
tax rate,
to, you don't want to
low
get
tax
interest
rate.
rate.
Go to a charter school and
Right.
the town pays for it.
To me, it's a private school, let them pay tuition. That's really what I want to do to the state house. I would love to just, I know there's a lot of, it's, we're tough to do, but I think this should be, they should pay.
It would be very tough because the last ballot initiative expanded
yeah.
the charter school
Expanded.
program.
Yep.
There's not an appetite across the majority for curtailing it.
And I used to think a big part of it was because the newer parents coming into town were somewhat ignorant in how good our schools are,
Yeah.
but it's been decades now. of
Yeah,
that
this
same-
is, yeah. And when Franklin expanded their size and scope of their physical plant,
I mean, it's super easy.
And it's hitting the town of Franklin the hardest.
it is, there's no question, it is. They're in the, we think we're bad, but they're also twice the size.
They're at ground zero for it.
Huh?
They're at ground zero, it's right in their town.
Yeah, they take more Franklin students as well
Yeah.
because they're in town,
Yeah.
so.
Well, we can be just to a dead
Yes.
horse, but we're done. Thank you. We talked about.
Oh, wait,
that
no,
subject
we
a
need
lot.
to approve the minutes because they have to get followed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I know. All right, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the
Third, sixth, and ninth.
23rd, 6th, and the 9th.
We have a first, we have a second, all in favor? All opposed, none. Motion carries unanimously.
Was that all we needed? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do we
that
need
was
to
it.
do anything as far as the budget, the motion for the budget?
No, just to move to forward it to the finance
Finance.
committee.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Everybody, thank you.
Then we're gonna close the meeting.
Everybody.
I make a motion to close the meeting.
Second,
Second, all in favor?
All the other, after we didn't.
Aye.
Aye.
only the ones that are still stuck together.